The bell keeps close at 9, tubes in the ultrasonic, coils wiped, green soap in the squeeze bottle. I run the rinse water until it stops smelling like the building and starts smelling blank, the way it does once the old copper wakes up. I print tomorrow's stencil on the thermal, purple lines clean, corner a little dog-eared where the feed catches if I don't guide it. No walk-ins after 8. The bell is dead. I flipped it myself an hour ago, a small mercy against the summer kids who think tattoos are like soda machines if you feed them late enough. The printer chirps anyway and feeds a second sheet I didn't cue. Purple shows a classic flash swallow, and inside the tail curl, a street map. My street kinked where the asphalt heaves over tree roots, little dots where the storm drains end in weeds. Beneath it, in pale carbon, a time written out the way a careful person writes a gate code on a sticky note. 4 hours, 11 minutes. The paper is warm where a hand would have caught it. I wait for my brain to remember I did that. It doesn't. I pull the plastic hood up and check the cartridge. Nothing jammed. I'm the only one with keys, and I took the app off my phone in March because it wanted updates when the snow was still black by noon. I prep practice skin to prove I'm jumpy. Stencil gel, firm press, peel. The transfer clings perfect and adds what I did in T-print, a vein map that matches a wrist. I know, a thin crescent scar under the wing where I cut myself opening a can at the kitchen counter last winter when the light bulb popped and I forgot the lid was still attached. The coil machine gives a single buzz without power, like a gnat remembering itself. The foot pedal is cold as a wrench found by touch in a dark garage. The clip cord warms in my hand like it's been in a pocket. The stencil on the fake skin shines and dampens as if from breath. A thread of soap in the rinse cup makes a glassy rope and then breaks quietly. A third sheet feeds. This one's block caps the way shop signs used to be before cursive came back around. Do not greet. Below, a line I draw without drawing. My signature, backwards, the way the mirror over the station would write it if the glass decided to keep what it saw. I glove and load a 5-round liner because that's what the hand on the paper knows. I always say needle groupings out loud in my head. The words slow me down, make the tip less of a weapon and more of a pencil. The machine starts when I lift it, steady as pulse. I float the needle over the fake skin, and ink appears under the hover, black rising like sweat in heat. Lines settle where they should. The swallow looks like something I used to draw on folders, while the hallway clock pushed minute by minute, and the bell rang flat as a lid. The shop clock clicks. The hand lands its tick on 4 hours, 11 minutes. The bell that shouldn't ring rings once, not loud, but so clean I feel it in my teeth. In the mirror, a wrist I know raises toward my station, veins matching my transfer exactly, skin clean and patient. I set the machine down and let it run in air. The paper on the tray curls, cooling, the way it does when you peel a stencil from someone who finally sits still. I hold still long enough to hear the compressor in the fridge hiccup and catch. The milk I keep for coffee thumps the door from inside as if nudged by a small wave. The street outside is quiet in that late stretch when the pizza place closes and the laundromat hums on stubborn. A siren runs past on the highway, far as weather. I tell myself it's fatigue dressed up. I haven't slept right since the fair. Too much lemonade, too much sound. The swallow, birds, maps, a time. My head can build a ghost if I hand it parts. I pull the plug on the printer. The light dies. The machine on the cradle eases to silence with a last polite buzz. The wrist in the mirror stays up. I look at my own arms. My hands are at my sides. I count one slow breath, then another. I say out loud, soft, so I don't wake whatever lives under the floor. No more for tonight. The mirror does not answer. My voice smells like coffee and nitrile. The old paint on the window frame shows fractures like frost. I reach for the light by the door and stop because I don't want to cross the exact spot where, if someone were standing, I would meet them. The line on the third sheet do not greet, sits in the tray with enough weight that I feel stupid reading it again. It lands in the part of my brain that collects rules you don't admit you live by. Don't step on the third plank at the back porch because it squeals and wakes the neighborhood. Shake the ketchup before you open it. Ignore the man at the laundromat who talks to the wall, because if you catch his eye, he'll give you every grievance like a stack of damp quarters you can't refuse. I wait for the clock to push past the minute. It refuses. It lives there, a steady hold. In the mirror, the wrist lowers, not fast, and the arm's angle tells me the rest of the body stands out of frame. That S how the stations are set up. The glass gives me shoulder to knee if a person sits, but standing, I get a slice. Someone knows the angle better than I do. I break my own rule and step where I'd meet them. I do it quick, pretending I'm just fetching the mop, the way you move past a dark room at home. There's no one. The air is cooler in that 2-foot width, as if the conditioner vents into a slit. The floor smells faintly of green soap and heat-peeled adhesive. I unplug the bell over the door, even though it has no power. The plug comes free like a tooth when you know it's time. I sweep the tray, stack the printed sheets face down, put the fake skin into the drawer with the others. The machine gets a soft wipe it doesn't need. I tell myself the clock's stuck. The battery's dying, the pin's bent. I take it off the wall and check. The tick hand jumps a hair like a deer deciding. I carry my bag to the back and stand in the hallway between studio and back room. The building trance is strong here, old plaster, a bead of condensation on the emergency light, a scuff where you always hit the laundry hamper if you don't turn your shoulder. The breaker panel hides behind a white door held shut by paint. I open it with the flat of my nails. I switch the main to off and count to 10. In the sudden quiet, the city outside steals in like smoke. When I lift the breaker, the clock still says the same words when I write them with my tongue in my mouth. 4 hours, 11 minutes. I leave the lights on. It feels wrong to let the shop dream. I lock the front, check it twice, walk the long way around the block to home. The heat hangs thin in the alley behind the bakery, sugar and batter thick under the lid of the night, as if I could lift it with a spatula. Someone's sprinkler ticks in a yard. It has no business watering at this hour, and the water lays a wet vein down the sidewalk that slaps under my shoes. My apartment smells like a place that has been shut all day. Paper, a mild sleep. The fan ticks. The crooked blind hooks one tine into the spider plant and holds it like it's S making an example. I set my bag on the chair where I keep mail until it stops being mail and starts being something I shovel into a drawer. I go to the sink and run the water until the old pipes let the cold through. I wash my hands longer than habit demands. When I lift my right wrist to dry it, the crescent under the bone, the can lid cut, looks redder. The skin around it looks softer, as if I steamed it. If I hold my hand just so, the vein map from the stencil fits. Every shop has this joke that you could tattoo blind if you've done 100 of something. The hand finds its own lines. But this is a different feeling, the sense that the lines found me. On the counter sits an old coffee can full of counter-wash rags. The lid rusts and draws a print on the wood if I leave it one night too long. I check it. Dry. The fridge kicks. The bulb has been out for months, but the way the mechanics of it work means the space inside flashes pale when the compressor starts, a shine traced along the rubber seal. I watch that flash as if it might teach me something. I look in the hallway mirror because if you don't, the not looking bends you. I tell myself I'll catch the trick this time. The window reflection, the angle, the light from the street. My face looks like what you get at this hour if you work late. Someone who could use a half day and a nap on a flat roof. The wrist I lifted to dry is mine, but when I lower it, the mirror delays a breath and then lowers it too, catching up. It's nothing like a horror movie. It's exactly like an elevator that sticks a floor and then takes you where it wants. In the middle of the night, I wake to the hum in the wall that belongs to the shop. This building used to hold all kinds of work you'd call small industry. The guy who had my space before me sharpened knives. The lady before him fixed clocks. The walls remember. Sometimes late, when everyone else has plugged their dreams in, you can feel the walls doing a little shift, moving sure ugly weight from one beam to another so they can bear another year. I feel that now. A deep readjustment. Something like breath, but slower than lungs. I get up because staying in bed feels like agreeing. I pull on yesterday's Success jeans and walk back to the shop without turning lights on at home, as if darkness can make me invisible to whatever notices. The sidewalk holds the heat of tires. Down by the river, the reeds whisper in their sleep. A skateboard hums somewhere and then stops. When I round the corner to the shop, the neon sign over the antiques place throws a soft ache into the air, like a bruise spreading. My own window looks ordinary, dark glass, with the faint suggestion of my waiting room chairs. The plant in the corner whose name I don't know. The lock takes the key with a small click, like a polite intake of breath. The bell is unplugged. Still, when I push the door, the sound I have trained myself to ignore greets me anyway. That single clean ring that says yes, a person has entered. You owe them the front of your face. Do not greet, the paper told me. I hold my mouth shut and blink the way you do before an eye exam to make the lines sharpen. Nothing moves. The place smells like stencil gel and the metal the building keeps in its skin. The printer is off. The light a cold zero. The clock's hand sits where I left it, the minute carved into patience. At the workstation, I find the 3 sheets in a different order than the order my hand stacked them. The swallow with the street inside is on top. My backward signature has bled a little, the carbon dusted like the end of a smudge if you touch it fresh. I don't. I look for footprints I would never find. The mat the clients stand on shows the same rubber moons as always. I open the back door to the alley to air the room, and because it feels rude not to give whatever air is here a way out. The smell of the bakery reaches in, warm batter and a sugar edge that, if you breathe it long enough, hurts. I stand there until the clock coughs a tick. The minute has moved. The hand moves slow, but it moves, and the air in my head loosens the way a knot stops fighting and focuses on how it's going to slip. I close the door. I unplug the clock because I can. It still ticks, which means it never ran on that plug at all. I set it face down under a towel. I work. Sometimes you can pick the lock on your own nerves by doing what you always do. I soak tubing in green soap and water, scrub tips that are clean already, line the bottles so their nozzles point the same way. I draw a tiny anchor, then a coin. I clean the trash that doesn't need it. I move the chair an inch to make room for a foot I haven't seen. The body remembers what the mind declines. A tap from the front window, not hard. A sound like a moth that cares more than most. I don't look up the first time because I am tired of giving the world that power. The second tap has a small skid, glass under finger. I look then because the part of me that will answer to any kind of door wants it. A man I don't know stands outside with his hands in his pockets in such a way that you know the pockets are all he has to do with himself. He could be a neighbor. He could be a person who counts out cash at a machine and tucks it into his hat for a second while he zips his jacket. He could be a man who is good to his dog. He could be the one who leaves the butt of his cigarette in the same crack by the meter every day. Closed, I say, with my mouth barely moving so it will not count as greeting. The word fogs a piece of glass an inch to the right of his eye. He nods once, like he got what he came for, then he points at his forearm and lifts his eyebrows in a way that says, "Please, I know I should have called. Do not greet. Sometimes a rule is a rope you can hand yourself." I shake my head. The man looks at the sign where it says the hours, and then he looks at the blank where you write appointments by name in dry erase. My hand has cleaned it too well. It shows only a shine. He tries the handle. It holds. His mouth shapes a word I do not catch. He does not look angry. He looks like someone who has carried an idea all day, and now the idea has to sit down, or it will ruin him. When he sees me not moving, he lifts his hand and with one finger draws a line on the glass the way people do when they are trying to show they understand the position of the doorknob, as if the map could help. He draws the shape of a bird. I don't open the door. I say nothing. I stand there until the bakery truck pulls into the alley and beeps once, in that friendly way people do at the edge of morning to warn rats and boys to move. When I look back, the man is gone. The glass holds the grease of the bird for a second more, and then the air eats it. I put the do not greet sheet into a drawer I don't use. Once it's out of sight, my head works better. That's the trick. Give the panic a little box and make it go sit. I wipe the glass even though nothing shows. I mop the front mat with too much soap. I sit in the chair like a client and stand again, because sitting there scoop shapes you into something other people own. When the sun sketches the brick across the street, I walk to the diner on the corner and order eggs and black coffee because I need bitterness. The waitress with the voice ruined by a good past sets the cup hard enough that some arcs to the saucer. The radio under the pie case talks about a water main advisory. Stay in if you can. Run taps if you must. Don't trust the first run. Closures east of the tracks until the tanks recharge. I listen for my block. It's west. I can move my tongue. Back at the shop, day makes everything unmagical. Light catches dust and calls it dust. Machines are machines again. The mirror holds nothing but a person who didn't plan a life as much as consented to one. People come. A shoulder rose, a flower behind an ear, a clean-up line for a man who hates the ghost of his old first thought. I play my music low. The printer prints what I tell it. The clock ticks regular. When the swallow shows in my head, it has nothing to sit on. It chirps once and goes. At 3 in the afternoon, a kid hands me a 50 that smells like dryer sheet and asks for a date on his wrist in Roman numerals. I ask what date. He tells me his brother's birthday. He looks as if he expects me to reprimand him. I don't. People do what they have to in order to write something down. When I transfer the stencil and the thin purple curve kisses his vein, I think of my fake skin last night, the way the birds drew themselves where I hovered. I think about the map inside the tail. I stop and take a breath. You sure? I ask. He says sure in the way water says sure when you touch it. Yard boys from the landscaping company come in for cold water and the relief of air. I fill their cups from the pitcher I keep for rinsing skullcaps and ask them to keep it in the lobby, not by the stations. They say thank you 3 times each. The manager of the antique store learns my name, so he can call me it when he complains about the hand-lettered sign for the dinner theater that leans against the curb, messing with the brand of the block. I tell him I'll ask who owns it. He tells me they own it. He laughs a laugh that is a cough with good shoes. This is the part where the story would stop if the world was kind. There would be one weird night and then my brain would file it under weather. The printer would be a printer. The clock would die when the battery died, and I would too eventually. In bed or on the floor of my kitchen, with my hand holding the edge of the counter like I intend to stand up again if you give me a second. The man at the window would walk into the butcher and see the special on ribs and buy more than he can carry and forget. The world is not that kind. Close at 9, the street heat has a slow-baked tartness like asphalt cooling after pie. The bell is plugged back in because people like the ritual of it, the way it makes them part of the room. I turn the sign. The printer chirps once, a polite recovery beep. I pull my bag to the edge of the counter so I won't forget it. I sweep the floor under the chair, picking up hairs by instinct the way a beachcomber picks up glass. The printer feeds. I do not touch the app, the switch, any of it. It feeds a blank white page that shines like a bathroom tile. I think, good, it's broken in a normal way. Then from under the white, another sheet creeps, heat slick, and carries words like a burn through paper. Walk home different. Under that, smaller, 4 hours, 11 minutes. Under that, The bird again turned a degree, as if flying for real this time. I tear both clean by mistake. The edges show teeth like cardboard chewed by an animal you'd forgive. I put them on the tray and Dante look, because you can persuade your eyes not to read if you treat paper like tile, tool, trash. I turn off the bell by pulling the plug hard and dropping it so it will learn. The bell pings with what it has left, and then is the dead weight it always was. I lock the door. The air outside carries the smell of water turned off. A hydrant down the block wears a blue plastic cap like a raincoat hood. A kid's bike lies on its side with the pedal up like a hand. I walk east because west is home, and east is different, and the paper told me. Down at the fence where the lot ends, a hinge has been broken for so long it has learned to sound friendly. It says hello to my ankle as I go through. I cut behind the laundromat and around the chiropractor S and through the alley behind the bar with the short name. The dumpsters make their own weather. Garlic and bleach and a single orange peel turn the air into a lake you can step out of. When I put my foot down in the dry part, the sound is a clop that says horse without horse. In the space between the bar's back door and the fence, a square of night stays black no matter how much the parking lot bleeds into it. I keep walking. The time in my head stands up and starts pacing. 4 hours, 11 minutes. It's a shape now, a small person with a hat made out of the minute hand. Not my friend, not my enemy, something like a co-worker you keep out of your house. I imagine the face of the printer like a stove eye, and the way it warms paper the way heat warms skin. I imagine the map under the swallow's tail. I see my own street like a vein under a thin arm. I do not look for the man from the window. I know if he appears on a block like this, it will be because he learned a second rule from a paper I haven't seen. I come up behind the bakery. The alley air is tart now, spent batter gone to cardboard. The baker's radio tells the weather to no one in particular. The voice says we'd under an advisory for overnight because the tower out on the ridge is drawing power from a backup, and that means some blocks need to stay quiet to share it out. Keep non-essential usage down. Try not to run appliances. If possible, avoid use of electric heaters and window units between the hours of 3 and 5. Thank you for being the type of community we remember later. I think of the compressor in my fridge, the way it kicks without a bulb to brag about it. I think of the printer warming paper that did not exist a breath before. I think of the clock on its face, ticking under a towel like a bird you covered to make it go quiet. A man drags a hose from a spigot near the fence and washes a line down the alley to usher the flour away. Water smells like coins scraped by a bus fare. He nods without greeting, and I nod without greeting back, and it feels like cheating and victory at once. When I come to my building, I stand across the street from it long enough to make a driver behind me tap his horn. I hold out my hand in an apology that means I know how the world works and I'll be part of it again in a second. I go up. The stairs carry the day's grit the way a man carries guilt, in the seams, folded in. I touch the banister and feel oil, heat, something human I can count on. Inside, the mirror by the hallway shows my shoulder first and then my face. I hold my breath for the lag. The glass keeps pace. The ceiling fan clicks the way ceiling fans click when their screws decide to march a little. I set my bag down. I look at my wrist. The crescent looks calm. The vein lies where a vein will lie and says nothing. I sleep and wake and sleep again in a way that leaves you with no narrative but the one your appliances give you. The fridge, the fan, the upstairs neighbor who only wears shoes during hours you don't. I dream I am at my station, and the needle writes without ink, and the skin accepts the writing, the way some paper accepts, marks you can only see if you tilt. My hand makes a whole bird, and then the bird flies and I can follow, because my shoes have wet on the soles, like I walked through someone else's morning. The water comes thin at first, then clear enough. The radio says the advisory holds until noon, then lifts if the tanks brace through. I don't need air. I need coffee. I need my shop to smell like green soap and plastics. I need to line the cap up with the squeeze bottle so it sits like a little hat and not a button you can find when you need it. I walk there by the west route because the paper told me east last night, and I am greedy. I want all my small chance uses up. The open sign is unplugged because I unplugged it last night out of a new superstition I hate and will keep. The lock takes the key and coughs once as if it swallowed dust. Inside, the light is steady and the floor is the floor. There is a note under the door. It's a flyer for the church fish fry slid wrong. The world stuns me by being regular. I stand still and let the relief pass through instead of holding it. That is a trick I learned after my mother died and left me the shop and a jar of buttons I didn't know a person could need. Let what comes come. Don't stack it. I start the day's first drawing. A little oak leaf a girl will hide in her hairline because her father will never forgive her a larger one. The printer warms, polite, quick. It gives me what I command. I hold the paper by its corners to cool it. I try not to think about hands that waited there to catch it warm. I transfer, press, peel. Perfect, nothing extra. Nothing. I breathe the way a shop breathes before a rush. Small, steady, counting ahead. By noon the advisory lifts, and in that lifting the town makes a sound. You can hear 100 refrigerators and 100 dehumidifiers and 100 window units take their first deep drink and sigh. The hand-lettered sign for the dinner theater tilts more. The antique storeman moves it 3 inches toward the curb and calls that a day S work. A skinny cat eats something it refused yesterday. At 4 in the afternoon, a man sits in my chair and rolls up his sleeve. He has the unopened look of someone who would never come to a place like this if his mind hadn't pushed him here to save itself. He asks for a small bird, nothing fancy, something that would sit on the inside of the wrist without making a speech. Like those old flash sheets, he says, and his voice catches in the ribbon of air you get between word and meaning when the word S working too hard. I print a swallow for him. The paper's purple is clean and dumb. Good. I cut close so I won't spook him with extra. I press his skin with the gel and lay the stencil and smooth with 2 fingers like you requieting a child over a wrinkle that would bother them all day. I peel. The bird sits where it should. No map. No clock. His veins do what veins do. His scar story is his, and I will not ask for it. He approves with a small breath through his nose. That, he says. That, exactly. I glove and load a 5-round liner. The machine hums. I hold the elbow with my left hand, the way I learned you can hold an elbow to make a person trust the rest. I set my needle and start at the beak, because I always start at the beak. Lines find their way. Sound fills the room enough that the world moves outside it. When I lift to wipe, a shadow passes the window. A casual body, a man in a hat. I wipe and go again. The machine lays steady wire. I could draw this with my eyes closed. I do not. When I skim over his pulse, I feel the tremor people give, even when they swear they donna die. I ask him to breathe on 3. He does. The line settles. His hand relaxes on my tray. I catch my own reflection leaning in the mirror and watch for a lag. It keeps pace, and I tell myself I'm teaching myself out of that fear through exposure. I lie. I am puttying a crack with a knife that bends. He tips well because men who are taught to be ashamed of wanting something tend to overpay for permission. I tell him not to soak it, not to suffocate it, to let it be a wound and not an emergency. He nods like a man who always means to follow instructions and never does. When he goes, he does it quickly, as if leaving a small room faster could confuse a regret. The rest is slow. Walk-ins I schedule for later. A soreness climbs my shoulders that I used to call satisfying and now call a note. At 8, I clean and wait for 9. I stare at the printer like it could feel me daring it. It doesn't care about me. At 9, I shut down. The clock says it's normal sentence. I pull my bag tight. The printer chirps. I don't look. I hold my breath, and then I look because breath won't hold me. The sheet it spits this time is not lettered. It is the swallow again, but the bird turned so hard the tail points forward like a needle. Under the wing, the scar. The crescent is deeper, an apostrophe cut into flesh to quote a thought you didn't say. I put the page down face first. I tell myself there is no message. I tell myself my head is a man with a ladder who sets it up against whatever wall he can find. I lock, I leave, I walk south 2 blocks, then cut west and take the long way because there is safety in checking every fence twice. The sidewalk under the elm out front is soft with pods. The neighbor's porch light hosts moths that batter themselves against the idea of it. My door opens like it always has, reluctantly, grudging, reliable. The mirror in the hall regards me without favor. I think of how many people have watched themselves in mirrors and asked not for beauty, but for continuity. I think of a bird turned so the tail becomes a spear. I go to the sink and wash my hands until the water runs too hot and then too cold, and then in that middle spot where it convinces you you're forgiven. I sleep badly, and I'm ashamed of calling it bad, because sleep is a gift, and mine still comes, even if it comes bone sore, even if it wakes me in the middle to tell me I forgot something simple, like salt. When morning limps in, it does it at the knees. The day plays ordinary for a while, plain as toast. A man wants a compass on his shoulder to tell himself a story about a time he got lost and did not die. A woman wants a line of dots up her spine that only mean themselves, and the fact that she has a spine where no one else gets to see it. A girl wants a sun on her ankle the size of a dime to hide a scar the size of a penny. They all get what they came for and leave with bandage care instructions as though the words can guarantee anything. Late afternoon, the manager from the antique shop stops by and leans in my doorway with the look of a person who means to ask for something he thinks you should give him for free because you are neighbors. He says there's a city notice about the block tonight. Quiet hours, he says, as if the phrase belongs to him. Because of the tanks, he says, they need to flush the line between us and the firehouse. He's proud of knowing this. So, you know, he adds, and spreads his hands as if showing the bottom of his palms makes him gentle. Early close would be polite. Polite, I say. My lamp hums. The printer is quiet in that way that makes you feel watched by a quiet person. What time? He likes that I ask. He liked it even before I said it. Between 3 and 5, they said the usual, but later it's better. The noise rides up. Sure, I say, and this time it is a greeting by accident, the smallest kind. He thanks me in a way that hints at the name of my shop, printed on some list he keeps of people who comply. When he goes, he leaves a smell like varnish and lemon that makes me see the inside of his front window, full of old globes and single chairs that look good until you sit in them. I clean slower than usual. I find a needle bent the width of a hair and throw it out, and then worry that I should have kept it to show a person who might someday need to learn. The clock's hand lifts and falls. The sun bleeds itself up the street, inching over window after window, until it comes to mine and leaves a smear like a hand dragged on glass from the inside. When I switch the sign to closed, the bell gives that friendly ring. I let it. Good manners won't save you, but they can't hurt. There is a time every night, right after I put the bar through the back of the door, when I wish someone would call with a reason I can to go home yet. Something small, a man who needs a line, straightened because his girlfriend will see it on vacation. A woman who lost a coin her father gave her and wants the same coin on her ankle where nobody can lose it again. An appointment who forgot the day and still wants it if I do. The wish is worse when the sky holds no weather to fight. It's quiet. The alley smells like flour and whatever else lives there. The printer waits as if it has always been waiting, and I just didn't know. I turn my back to it because I am not a dog. I pick up my bag. The printer feeds. My body makes a sound like a toe stub into air. I do not turn. I tie the bag by the straps and set it down, and then I turn because I am exactly a dog. The sheet on the tray shows no bird. It shows a street, not mine. A long line with a kink that could mean a railroad or a fault. At one end, a dot with a word under it, small block caps, Raven Court. Under that, in tiny letters, the way the printer does small like it's ashamed of itself, facing you. My mouth tastes like nickels. Raven Court exists as a phrase in the town the way a joke exists in a family. Everyone knows it and pretends not to. It's the little stub street behind the old brewery where in winter the city plows dump snow so it can think about where it wants to live. In summer, kids cut through and break their sandals on bottle glass and laugh in voices that pretend not to be scared. A man I went to school with lived there for a time and built furniture out of pallets until the day he welded a bed frame in the garage with the door down and forgot the part about air. The landlord painted over the smoke. Facing you. I stand with the paper in my hand like a person holding a baby he has not earned, and I wait for the second sheet. It doesn't come. The machine yawns a little with heat and then goes quiet. The clock on the wall announces its own permission. 4 hours and 11 minutes to midnight. I am not superstitious. I am not. I lock up. I go to Raven Court because I do not have a better idea, and some kinds of wrong feel worse if you leave them for the morning. The town at this hour is a dog on a porch, not asleep, not awake, watching the street for the thing it knows and the thing it doesn't. My shoes make a law for themselves that each foot must land on a different kind of crack. I turn corners because corners ask to be turned. The brewery, S. Brick, stares with the exhaustion of a skull that once supported a life when work was heavier and men didn't live long because there was less air in factories. The stub street opens like a garage left ajar. 2 houses face each other like dogs at a fence. A single car sits with the hood up, though there is no one to work it. A recycling bin lies on its side the way it would after a blow no one took the blame for. The smell here is metallic, old hop, wet cardboard, the patient soup of a neighborhood that hasn't been asked to do anything in a while. Someone stands in the middle, where the light from a security flood makes a white oval on the cracked tarmac. I know the body before the brain tells me, the angle of the shoulder, the weight of the head, the wrist. Not because I am a mystic, but because over time the world gives you the few shapes you can hold and says here, practice on these until they are the only ones you know. It is the man from the window, or a man like him. It is the body the mirror showed me the edge of. He lifts his hand the way he did then, but this time he does not draw a shape on glass. He opens his palm, and I see the crescent scar, neat as a coin cut into a potato for a trick. I do not greet. I swallow the word that means hello, and the word that means what do you need, and the word that means no. I hold still. My breath feels like a wire pulled through a needle with shaking hands. He lowers his hand as if it grew heavy. He turns his wrist as if to check time and then lets it hang. His other hand stays in his pocket. He looks at me like a person at the end of a long day looks at a lamp that one turn on. I think of the paper printed with block caps. I think of how it sat on the tray like a commandment that wasn't my business. If I greet, what even is greeting? A nod, a name, the turn of a shoulder welcoming? I step back so the welcome mistake will not happen to me. He speaks first. The voice is the one the town gives people with work you done at sea in the day. Quiet. Barely any grit. You closed, he says. It is not a trick. He wants what he says. He is the sort of man who would come through an alley to a side door so as not to bother anybody. His mouth stays soft after the word the way you leave your hand on a table after you say please. I do not say yes. I do not say I'm sorry. I do not ask what he wants. I stand with my hands at my sides and try to be narrower than my body. He looks at me for the time it takes a moth to decide a light is still a light. He nods in a way that means he understands. This is not a place. He turns and walks toward the car with the hood up. He doesn't look back. At the corner where Raven Court spits you out toward the brewery, I rest my hand on the brick and let the rough bite into my palm until it means I exist. I stay until the air steals the heat from my hand and gives it to the wall. Then I go home by a route that has no distance at all, because every corner I turn has already been turned by someone who knows me. In my hallway mirror, my face comes with me. It keeps pace. I say very low to the glass, the way you talk to a skittish dog from a neighbor yard. Not tonight. The mirror has nothing to say. That night I dream my machine runs without me, and a thin dark line stitches the air between the armrest and the cradle. The line goes on, without stopping to wipe. It is not ink, and it is not thread, but it holds. When I wake, the room feels taller. The fan refuses to click, as if ashamed of what it always does. The day after, and the next, ordinary again, except for the part of me braced for a printer sheet that says, go left or go home or do not speak until. They don't come. I do the work. I keep the shop. I wrap my needles into their blue paper and autoclave and log the run with the little strip that tells me the heat did what heat promises. I hang my plastic. I put the cap back on the green soap bottle and line it to the wall so it doesn't drip on the mat and make a print. I fix the wobbly leg on the lobby chair with a fold of slip sheet and lie to myself about how permanent that is. I drink coffee cold because the day takes it from me warm. At close on Tuesday, the printer chirps. I wait. It doesn't feed. I laugh. Short. A knife on glass. Then the machine on the cradle answers the printer with a single polite buzz. The coil stirs. I pull the clip cord out of the machine and lay it in the drawer, and the noise comes again from the empty air where the machine isn't. It is a mimic. It is a body memory. It is the first word of a hello I have been warned not to answer. I leave the shop bright. Lights on, trash bag tied high, sign flipped to closed like a lesson. I go home and heat a pan and cook eggs and eat them from the pan with the handle wrapped in a dish towel, because if I put the eggs on a plate, the plate will belong to the night and the night will ask for it back. I leave the pan in the sink and run water until the oil stops making rainbows and starts making holes. There is a part of me that wants to take the do not greet sheet from the drawer and tape it up above the mirror like a shop sign. No checks, no children, no fate. I don't. I put a plant there instead, one of those pothos that forgives everything. It spills its little heart-shaped leaves over the edge of the shelf and down the side and stops next to the old bottle of black ink I keep to remind myself I have always wanted this life. Even when the life refuses to be at ease. The next night the bell rings once without power, and I do not choke on it. The night after that the mirror lags again and catches up. People get birds and roses and names in that order. A woman asks for the face of a fox on the bone at the back of her hand, and when I finish it, she laughs a short, broken thing and presses the new fox to her mouth, as if that will sew the laugh in. The advisory for quiet hours returns over the weekend because the tower on the ridge is still doing more than it should. The radio asks us for care. The town tries. The laundry spins earlier. The bars turn their signs off a little before midnight. The antique man tucks his globes to the back. At the line where the block meets the highway, a small yellow sign says, "Thank you for your patience like a person at a counter who has run out of pens." On Sunday, a thin man who smells like clean laundry and nothing else sits in my chair and asks me for a bird. "Old kind," he says. "No names, just the bird." When I press the stencil, his veins show dark under his skin, the way water under ice looks toward March. He watches my hand like it is something he lost and might remember. At the moment I lift to wipe, he says, almost too soft to hear, "If it comes in, don't say hey." It knows that word. His eyes are not on mine when he says it. He is looking at the mirror. I nod because nodding is not greeting. He leaves a 10 on the tray, because sometimes it is easier to pay than to finish what you meant to say. When he goes, the bell rings once, a clean tone that hangs and then dies. The printer doesn't speak. The clock does the usual. The quiet hour comes. The break point is nothing like a film. You picture a scream, a black cut, a hand on glass. It is this, the swallow turned on the paper until the tail points forward, a map that is my street and is not. The mirror's patient lag, the smell of hot paper, the sound of the bell, the voice that isn't, the advisory that asks whole blocks to go soft for a pair of hours so the tower can gift the town another day. And the ordinary body that walks into my shop while the sign is flipped and I am locking the case with the studio jewelry, because if a person is going to steal, they will take the easiest steal. He steps over the threshold without the bell. He does not appear in the mirror until he is 3 paces in, and when he does, the glass gets him wrong. Puts his hand where his pocket is and his shadow where his hand should be. He wears no hat. His face is the face of anyone whose job makes him steal sleep from himself. He stands and then says low, the way a person asks to sit at a full lunch counter, "I know you're closed." I think the word hello because my mouth refuses it. I do not speak. He looks at the chair, and at my hands, and at the wall with the flash that is old enough to mean what it used to mean and not the joke the internet made it. He says, "I can pay cash." I lift my shoulders and let them down. Not a shrug, not a welcome. The motion a person makes when a bird flies in through an open door and you don't want to tell it, there is no way out but the way it came. He steps back. He takes the small folded paper from his pocket and sets it on the tray, and then he goes out the door and the bell rings and the sound is a wick. The paper sits there. It isn't my printer's paper. It's a piece torn from a receipt book, the kind with the blue lines and a carbon copy you learn to press hard on. On it, drawn with a soft pencil, a bird, not a swallow, not any bird I know. A bird that looks like a mouth, that has learned to wear itself on the outside. Under it, written in block caps, tidy, "If it comes, do not greet." I sit in my chair and listen to the building work under me. I can feel the old knives and the clocks and the weight of the machines that used to live here shift into comfort, the way a person S-hip slides into a dent on the couch and knows it is home whatever else comes. I lay my hand on the paper and slide it into the drawer with the other. The warning has changed because it knows I needed it to. It is tender, like a mother's last attempt to get you to listen before she lets the world teach you. The night holds. The minute hand limps to the place with the words I now carry around like lint. 4 hours and 11 minutes becomes a time I do not speak where anyone else can hear it. The bell is unplugged and rings once anyway when the street breathes just right. The mirror watches what I do and forgives me nothing, which is fine. Forgiveness is not what I came here for. On Monday, a woman brings me a picture of her backyard fence and tells me she wants the line of it inside her wrist, so she will remember what she kept out and what she kept in. The printer obediently eats the image and chews what it can and spits out a map someone could walk with. I cut the mesh and leave the darkness. I press it to her skin, and her veins make the fence look like it has been under a sky all its life. Before I start, I say to her the thing I now say to everyone when I set the needle down and the first sound fills up the room. If anybody comes in, anybody, I might need to let them stand there. I won't greet them. It's better that way. She looks at me with interest and a little admiration because she thinks this is about boundaries and not doors. "Sure," she says. "No problem." She thinks she understands. Maybe she does. Maybe none of us does. And that is how the town works. By convinced little lies that sit under good work and let it happen. I make the line. It is the cleanest fence I have ever drawn. It holds. That night, the printer is dark. The clock is a towel-covered bird. The mirror shows me exactly. The bell sleeps. I hear a step outside that is not a person. Air perhaps learning to do what bodies do when they want a place to open. I do not greet. I do not look away. I wait. The noise passes like weather. The building settles. I turn the sign to closed, and I go home by the way I can help, and I dream about nothing at all. This is not a happy ending. It is maintenance. It is the way you keep a machine that does not care about you full of oil, so that it hurts you less and less loudly, and maybe someday not at all, and maybe someday it will teach you a new noise that means safety. I do not greet, and the world most nights lets me work. On the morning the advisory lifts for good, the radio says the tower climbed back onto its main line, and we all did well. Thank you for your patience. We are the sort of place people write about in little magazines when they get lonely for where they grew up. I switch it off. I make coffee. I hold my wrist under the cold and watch the crescent fade from red to familiar. I go downstairs. The shop smells like green soap and the rubber of new gloves. I hold the Bell S plug in my hand a moment, and then I put it back in, and the bell sighs a small readying sigh like it missed its work. I set the machine on the cradle and fit the clip cord like a handshake. The printer waits. The clock speaks only in seconds. At 9:10, a kid I have never seen comes in and points at the sheet with the old flash swallows, and I say, sure, and he asks for it on the inside of his wrist, and I say, we can do that if you promise to keep it clean. He promises the way a kid promises, with all his teeth. I print and press and peel and sit him down. He holds his breath and lets it go. The machine hums, the line lays, the bird lands. He looks at it when we redone like he didn't know a body can keep something that doesn't belong to muscle or blood. He thanks me with his hand, cash folded tight, the way people thank you when they've made a vow to themselves and you held the pen. He leaves. The bell rings. The room empties. I stand and wait for the mirror to lag. It doesn't. I wait for the printer to speak. It doesn't. The clock takes its bites. I put my hand on the table where a wrist would go, and the metal is warm already from a body that sat there a minute ago. I think about the shape of my street under the swallow's tail. I think about the man in the white oval of Raven Court. I think about the word that comes first in 1,000 sentences and how I will hold it and not spend it the next time something that knows my shape comes in and stands in the door. The bell rings once more in an empty shop, as if the day itself has decided to come in late and leave early. I do not greet. I watch the door. I let the sound hang until it thins and dissolves. I pick up the machine and set it down. It buzzes with no power and then it doesn't. I go on with the work. The week leans toward the end like a shelf you've been meaning to shim and haven tea. The weather remembers it can be kind and then forgets. The printout drawer gains weight, the way a coat gains weight in the rain. Slowly at first, and then you notice you're carrying. I keep opening it to make sure the papers haven't become something else. Not because I'm worried they will, but because I'm worried they won tea. And that means they were not done with me. On Thursday morning, a man with hands like knotted rope comes in and asks for a straight line from the inside of his elbow to the ball of his thumb. He says it's for measuring lumber by eye. He says he'll never use it and needs it anyway. I tell him it will blur because the skin folds there. He says he blurs too, and he's still useful. I print, I press, I line up tendon and purple. I breathe with him. When I wipe after the first pass, the paper towel takes a neat amber line of sweat, a receipt for the work, and the sneeze of the green soap stings my wrists like something that wants to be a warning and is only a habit. He leaves, and the bell rings, and the room settles around me. The clock chews seconds, the mirror keeps pace, and I thank it under my breath like you thank a pot not to boil over. The printer sleeps for a long, merciful hour. I'm grateful enough to wash the clean bottles again and lay them out, so their nozzles face the same way like a marching band with their good shoes on. I eat a heel of bread in 3 bites because the middle slice fell butter down on the paper I use for appointments and left a slick ghost of itself I will write over. The town outside hums its improved song, less careful, more sure, and I almost let myself grin at the relief a body gives you when it gets a day off from dread. Then the water jitters in the rinse cup, not a big thing, a tremor. The surface shivers and then relaxes. The printer chirps once in a tone like a sigh through a bedroom door you meant to close softer. It feeds. The paper comes with no ink, only that old heat, and I tilt it until the letters try to show themselves. They are faint and stubborn, and I love them for it, because if they wanted to be seen, they would not be for me. If you move the mirror, the room will move too. Keep it where it has learned you. If it asks at home, teach the hallway a new rule. The paper cools and goes blank in my hands, and for a second I am the kind of person who cries because something plain happened at an ordinary desk. I put the sheet in the drawer with the others and put my palm flat to the wood until the oil prints a half moon like a watermark. I speak the rule to myself without sound, the way you remind a child which way to look before you cross. Keep the glass where it knows you. Teach the hallway. An hour later, the antique man rolls his shopper's sign out onto the sidewalk and points it a degree more toward mine, and I almost laugh because there's your demonstration of the rule set at scale. Everything in town nudges 1 degree toward everything else until someone knocks it back. I bring him a wedge of cardboard to steady the wheel on the sign. He says thank you in the tone of a person who can now be seen from the street how he prefers to be seen. I go back to my door and hold the Bell S rope in my hand for a second, feel its powdery life on my palm before I let it hang again. Mid-afternoon, a girl with a braid to her waist sits down for a bird at the back of her shoulder. She wants it small, so the first time she sees herself with it in a mirror and forgets, it will feel like someone pinned a little truth to her without asking. I print the swallow because people still trust swallows to mean what they meant when sheets like mine were all a shop had. When I press the stencil, the purple settles neat. Under my glove, my skin goes cold, like I put my finger in the fridge to the knuckle. There's nothing on the girl's back but the bird. No map, no scar, no extra line, and still I feel watched. I work slower than usual over the lower wing. The machine hums that polite hum a friend would use to talk to your parent from the doorstep. The girl's skin takes the ink in that easy way some people's bodies do, like the color has been waiting for a door and you brought one. When I wipe, the paper towel leaves a clean triangle of skin surrounded by black, fine like iron filings. A strand of her hair sticks to the lotion in a curve like a question mark, and I smooth it away with the back of my knuckle. She says thank you with a sigh that isn't a word, and I let the room hold it. When she leaves, I stand where she stood, on the rubber moons cut into the mat, and I look at my own chair and my own tray and my own mirror. I put both hands on the counter and push, just enough to feel the weight of the building. I do not move the glass. I tape a dime-sized piece of masking tape on the floor at the place my heel likes. A dumb insurance policy, a ritual, a line. The mirror knows me here. It will know me if I come back to the tape. I will be 1 notch less edible to anything that eats people by asking their names in kind voices. In the evening, I go home different from habit, because the last time I went the usual way, a man who was not a man used my name. I go up the back stairs that smell like somebody else's spices, and the kind of hot dust that lives in a vent nobody has ever cleaned on purpose. I look at the hallway mirror and put my fingers on the frame and do not lift, because the printer told me not to. I turn the frame a breath left and a breath back again to feel the screw say there, that's enough, and I let it be. In bed, the heat of the day lets go the way a person lets go of a rope after leaning their weight on it too long, fingers reluctant to open. I think I will sleep hard because I have practiced, because practice is the only thing I have to offer anything. I sleep and wake because practice is not a warranty. It only makes the break later and taut. At some middle hour, the building breathes in that slow, industrial way its bones prefer. And I hear the bell once without power, a distant ring like a memory whose edges still cut. The hallway smells faintly like the shop, ink warming, not strong, not bad. Like a person you were fond of walked through the kitchen, and you only realized after they left, because the chair tilted back into place. I sit up and practice staying stupid. Don't say your name in your own head. Don't say anyone's. Don't bring a list to a room that loves names. The next day is errands morning. I call the needle supplier and order sleeves, because I was down to the ugly count. I sign for a box of caps that comes in smelling like sword, cardboard and summer truck. I count cash. I make coffee. The printer is a good citizen until 10, when it gives me 3 hot blanks in a row. Tilted under the window, the letters bloom like a bruise and then fade. The first says, if it learns your step, it will stand where you are going to be. Walk wrong on purpose. The second says, if it knows your voice, it will wait in rooms and turn a word into you. Keep the words in your mouth until you can put them on paper. The third says, there is a door on the edge of water where the town forgets itself. If someone stands inside the white, do not wave. I think of the boy with the mower. I think of the oval that looks like permission when you're hungry for light. I lay the 3 sheets together and they feel like bread. I put them in the drawer, and for the first time I lock the drawer with the little key that came taped to the bottom the day the shop's owner, before my mother decided to buy decent furniture. The lock catches like a gear, finding a new set of teeth. The click is not satisfying. It is simply accurate. Around lunch, a woman with paint on her knuckles comes in and asks for a simple ladder on her ankle. I'm done climbing, she says, and the words are not bitter. They are a weather report. I print 4 rungs. I ask if she wants 5. She says, 4 is right. 4 I can step over if I need to. I place the stencil, and it sits there like a thing that will outlast us both. I run the lines and think of the ways a ladder on a body is a lie and a truth. She pays exact. She leaves, saying she might come back for the rest when her knees stop telling the truth. At 2, I step outside and pretend I'm on a break, because sometimes pretending turns into believing if you give it 10 minutes. The street heat has learned to hold steady. Cars slide through it like seals. The laundry's soft machines hum. A bus pulls in a breath and releases it. In the window of the bakery, a woman hangs a sign by 2 hooks. The backs of the hooks knock the glass once each, like knuckles politely testing a joke. I raise my chin to a kid on a bike who looks like the boy and isn't T. He gives me his chin back, clumsy and proud. I turn away like I didn't want it. I wanted it. Back inside, the room is the room. It has accepted the tape on the floor as not a taunt. The mirror still knows me where it learned me. I wash my hands. I lay out for a walk-in who doesn't show. The printer waits. The bell waits. The town does not. Late long after close, but before the hour that dares you to name it, the fan in the apartment stops, stuttering, a little blessing, and something uses that silence to talk. Not a voice, a tautness in the air. The way a barely open valve feels when you lay your hand on it and find out why the sink is slow. I go to the door and put my ear to it and hear nothing, and put my palm to it and feel the temperature of a chiding. I go downstairs barefoot, because my shoes are by the chair where the mail lives, and for once I don't want my feet to convince me I am about to leave. The landing between floors has a different sound tonight. The hush thump of someone standing 3 steps below, weight on their heels, like a person who has decided against flight. I hold on the landing not because I am scared to go on, but because ritual is a rope and I need mine in my hands to know it. It's not simply hanging behind me, pretty and useless. I open the shop door and the room is not empty. It is set. The rectangle in the window, white that isn't light, depth that isn't space, watches me without eyes. The chair and the armrest and the tray are a little meaner in their angles, the way furniture gets when you're in trouble, and it stops making allowances for you. On the tray, the outline of a hand waits the way a glove waits for its person at a bus stop, patient, unashamed to be seen alone. The bell gives one low tone, like a man with a sore throat being polite across a counter. The room asks for me by my first name and by my second. It lays the names out like a hardware store owner puts a selection of nails on the counter for you, long, short, penny brad, to help you pick the right tool to pin your afternoon to. It uses the voice a morning has when you've been up all night. My mouth opens the way mouths do when words that know the path want to walk it. I put my tongue to the roof of my mouth and press until a muscle in my jaw complains, and the words slide back down like a dog told off the couch. In the mirror, my reflection grays a moment, like when a cloud crosses a road dipped in oil. Then it sharpens again, obedient, sweet. I do not move from the tape. The printer thinks about feeding and doesn't. It hums the hum of a machine that has decided to wait for the next owner. The clock clicks, but the hand refuses to spend the minute. It likes the coin in its pocket. I stand and let the ask roll over me and back, the way surf does when you learn where the shelf breaks and can plant your feet. It asks again. It asks like a friend who knows your thresholds and taps the exact pattern you taught them to use when they need you. It asks into the place in a person where names live at their quietest, the breath that shapes a reply to a kitchen call, the sound your hand makes when you lift it, your mouth's automatic willingness. I let the ask pass through that place like a black dog in a field at night. Fine, good dog, not mine. The rectangle brightens and dims, a low tide and a lower. The hand on the tray fills a little more, and then less, as if someone is learning to trace a person on a wall with a pencil and keeps breaking the graphite. It offers a compromise without words. Any name, then. It is ready to accept the wrong name if it comes easy to me. I give it the name of a creek that isn't here and never was, not out loud, not in my head, but with my focus pointed hard at the weedy dip along the trolley line. I send the room there the way you swat a fly with your eyes and hope your eyes are a hand. It goes. Not far, not offended. It goes the way a wind goes around a tree and comes for your hat from behind. I can feel it in the walls, the old plaster taking the pressure, the paint taking a memory of the pressure, the shelves holding what they hold. I let my hand rest where the diagram taught me, heel into bone, the part of the palm that knows return. The room notices the hand and loses interest in my name for the length of a bird-s beat. The bell says the sound you make when you drop a spoon and catch it with your shoe. Something in the drawer thuds as if it turned in sleep. Behind me in the hallway, someone breathes and then stops because I heard and I am not a person with good news. I do not look. I wait for the ask to slide off me like oil and go where oil goes when a storm hits a river. When it slides, I step back and find my tape with my heel and find the door with my shoulder and find the lock with my hand and let the door tell me it's closed. Up in the apartment, the air feels used, that unexplained fatigue in a room after you move furniture back where it belongs. I sit on the floor. The floor keeps me in a way a chair couldn't. I put my hand over my mouth, not because I think the room can hear me breathe, but because sometimes hands are smarter than mouths. In a few minutes, a car passes and the sound pushes the night along and it doesn't come back the same. Morning puts on its plain shirt and gets to work. The coffee tastes like it should. The mirror keeps the bargain. The shop smells like the shop. I put the kettle on the hot plate for the clients who like tea and set out the cheap honey in the bear, whose face has never looked like a bear to me. Too human, that demented generosity. The bell does its ring when it's paid to. The printer shuts up. The day no longer needs bravery. It needs towel folding and cap counting and how your mom lines that get you a little further into a person or story without making you guilty of theft. A woman with a cigarette laugh and a steady hand brings me a line drawing of a motel, the name on the plastic band from the fish fry towel's edge. I worked there for 12 years, she says, and I hated it, and I loved it, and I need to put it somewhere I can see when I reach for something else. She wants it on the back of her wrist. I tell her it's a bad place for detail. She says she knows. She wants the blur. She wants the forgivable. We scale it to a slab, a roof line, a door indicated with the lightest of touches. She watches me with her mouth set to yes. I lay the violet on, and it sits like an old truth going public. I run the lines and they land. When I finish, she blows a breath across the ointment and says, "If I see it, I won't greet it." And I don't ask how she knows to say that, because she said it to herself, and I was only the other object in the room. Sometime late afternoon, our quiet hours return in spirit, if not in law. The radio reads an outage report from the far side of the county where a transformer sulked itself off a pole. And for a span, the town does that practice courtesy again. Machines, early fans, low men quiet in the doorway while a woman finds her keys. I run the autoclave because the clock in my head recites the math of load and heat, and nobody asked it to stop doing that. The indicator strip goes from beige to black, and I write the change down on the line. I hang the packet to cool. Someone pushes the door and lets it settle without ringing, and I know exactly who would do that. And it is nobody with a face. After close, I leave the light on and sit in my own chair for a minute, because a person should sit where they make others sit from time to time to learn whether the sky looks different from that angle. The mirror holds my shoulder too broad. The armrest wants a wrist I am not willing to supply. I set the machine in my lap without turning it on, like you rest a tool on your thigh when you know it is not time to use it, and you know the tool appreciates the simple fact of being noticed anyway. The bell makes a throat sound because the building next door coughed. The printer remains uninterested. The envelope comes under the door without sound. Paper on rubber, a smooth slide, a small check of the door against the jamb as the envelope steals its space. No return address, my name printed in those sign painter caps that look kind without meaning it. Inside, a single sheet written hard enough to press through and make the blank a bruise too. It says, "You will have to go where hands are, not because you are brave, because something is learning to wave." I take the sheet with me to the hall and look at my neighbor, door and my door and the stairs and the banister and the scuff where I always hit the corner of the wall with the laundry bag, and I think about what a hallway is for. It is for passing. It is for waiting. It is for standing with your hand on a frame and honoring the invention of threshold. A hallway is where greetings happen because the kitchen owns the table, and the living room owns the chair, and the hallway is for sending a person toward one or the other, hand forward. Teach the hallway a new rule, the heat writing told me. I put 2 strips of painter's tape on the floor across my threshold, 2 inches apart, a foolish detail. A line like the kind a mother tells a toddler not to cross until she says, "Okay." It is ridiculous, and I am relieved by how much it helps. The human body will obey a line it laid down for itself when the rules are unclear. If the room asks at home, I will meet it before the line and not after. The mirror won't have to be judge and jury. I will be an employee checking badges. Friday is the day men ask for things on their fingers. Thin rings, tiny initials, a point. They want to risk losing it and be told by a stranger on a bus they could have known better. I make neat symbols in small places and say all my lines about care and shedding, and do not put your hands in your pockets if your pockets are your job. The bell rings for men who have learned to tuck a paper towel in their sleeve so the black 1T show on their shirt. The mirror behaves. The printer holds its breath. The drawer key stays turned. At lunch, I walk to the municipal building and look for the boy by the grass with the cheap mower and the motor that swallows its own smoke when you ask too much. The man they sent to cover his route wears ear protection around his neck like jewelry and looks too careful in all his moves. I raise my chin. He lifts his eyeline the smallest amount. I am greedy. I want that recognition even though I don't deserve it. I walk away before he can decide whether I'm worth the trouble. Behind the building, the creek dip holds a smell the color of burnished penny. A crane fly skates the shade like a novice, afraid to catch the air with its foot wrong. A white oval of light pools near the fence in a place that always looks lit even when it isn't tea. It's not the same oval as Raven Court, but it is kin. You notice when a shape your town learned lives somewhere it shouldn't. Children are better at it. Adults teach themselves not to know. A kid on a scooter stops at the edge of the oval and does not enter. He balances with 1 foot on the curb and 1 foot hovering, and he looks at the white, like it might be a cold sink full of dishes at a party he doesn't want to crash. He lifts his hand out of habit to wave at nothing, and I see his fingers wobble as they almost choose. He lowers his hand because some other part of him learned a second rule when he learned to cross a street. Look, then look again. He scooters on. I put my hand heel first against my own thigh and press, as if the rule has a place in a body and not just on a sheet in a drawer. In the afternoon, the bakery runs the small oven hot for 100 rolls, and the alley smells like sugar that has forgotten to behave. Flour blooms and lies. A woman reverses the big mixer by pulses and quiets it between. The building hums steady. I watch for the rectangle in the glass, and it does not appear. I look anyway. A person looks at an empty door, as if expecting someone they love to choose it. It wastes nothing to look. It wastes everything to long. The last appointment is a kid with a rabbit drawn by a friend. The lines are too thin, and the ears have a kink like a wire hanger someone fought. I adjust it quietly in the stencil, just enough so it'll hold, and show him how what he brought me is still his. He sits with his hands under his thighs to keep them from answering every itch. I tell him what I tell them all for the first pass. Breathe on 3. He breathes on 2 because the body has a sense of humor that forgives impatience. The line sits. The rabbit looks like it would run if it could find where to put its front feet. When he leaves, the bell stays quiet a half second longer than a bell should, and then drains the room of its note like someone at a bar finishing their water and sliding the glass back without catching your eye. I turn the sign. I wipe my tray. I write the day S number into a line of days that determine whether I can say this month was livable without making a face. I unplug nothing. I put the key into the drawer and decide not to lock it because absolutes get you killed. On the way home, I pass the diner, and the waitress who ruined her voice on a good past stands out front on a smoke as if she's practicing being a customer. She waves with 2 fingers from a hand that has plates in it even when it doesn't at tea. I lift my chin and keep my hand right where it belongs. The wave she didn't tea get becomes a little crease between her eyebrows. She rubs away with her thumb. She is fine. The world keeps her. I am the one who misses the extra room a wave used to open. The hallway smells like my neighbor S. onions and like the shop S. ink and like my carpet cleaner, which is a smell like chlorinated patience. The mirror holds steady. It recognizes me in the way of old buses and barbers and heavy doors, without liking me, without disliking me, with fidelity. I take off my shoes and line them heel to the painter S tape, and this time it feels less foolish and more like a lineman checking his own rig before he climbs, touching every hook and leather. I stand on my side of the tape and match my breath to the pulse that lives behind my ears. I feel the room thinking a question and changing it mid-thought. Sleep learns me better than I like. It comes faster when I don't want it and hangs back when I need it. In the middle of the night, I'm somewhere between the coil hum and the bell and a far siren that belongs to a road that passes us by and pretends not to look. The building inhales through a seam where brick hands would. There is a soft finger laid on the doorframe, the way someone might claim the right to knock without the act. The painter's tape holds the smallest curl at one corner. The tape stays a line. The line stays a rule. The rule stays a kindness I am finally willing to give myself. I put my hand, heel in, to my chest, just under the clavicle. It is not the place the diagram taught me. It is the place my hand picked for itself. I hold it there and breathe and find the old rhythm. The asking comes, a pressure on the air like the weight of a damp towel you forgot on the back of a chair. Gentle, patient, sure it could get kinder if I needed it to. I do not answer. I let it stand outside a while until even the polite get tired. Politeness fails before insistence does. I'm counting on that. It holds a span and goes. A moth touches the glass of the window and downgrades itself to dust. On Saturday, I fix the wobble on the lobby chair with a real fix and not a fold of paper. Because if you leave too many temporary measures in a room, it thinks it can bargain everything out of you. The screw bites and sets, and the chair becomes one thing again. The weather leans clear, and the town performs a market. I forget it's every other week until I see the string of tents down by the municipal. I forget how sincere bad peaches look under a white canopy. I walk through at noon with a paper cup of lemonade that tastes like a little kid's memory, and nobody stops me because I walk like I always have somewhere to be. I pass the booth selling candles that smell like baseball glove and laundry room, and a thing called First Kiss that smells like green apple and generic hope. The woman running the booth looks at my wrists the way people do when they suspect a decent stack of stories lives there. I put my hands in my pockets because I'm sick, briefly, of the kind of attention I used to live on. Back at the shop, someone has pushed a note under my door. Plain paper. The words written with pressure, like a person taking down a license plate. Raven Court at dark. Don't wave. Don't say hello. I stand with the paper inside my hands and give it the warmth that makes the soft pulp threaten to fail, because there is a little relief in the idea that any paper might lose its job, and then I set it in the drawer and do not lock it. Maybe it's a trap. Maybe it's a gift. Maybe it's just the way the town talks to itself when it runs out of daylight. When dark comes, I go, because a person should go when asked by something that has been at least trying to keep you alive. I take the route that avoids the roads that used to own me. No east past the laundromat, no south past the diner's back door. I cut through behind the municipal and cross where the old creek would have been water and feel the ground hold. The oval at Raven Court burns its own heatless white. The fence bears the memory of a mower AS line, like a scar that gets lighter until weather decides to darken it again. The air smells like someone finished a beer on a porch and tipped the end out in the grass. That brassy ghost lives in every alley. The town wears it like a familiar. A body stands in the oval, easy, like the oval told it to. Not the man from the window, not the boy. Not anyone I can hand a name to without being wrong on purpose. It holds its wrist at the angle people with new marks hold their wrists. It lifts its other hand with the idiot kindness a wave always is. The hand holds there a beat too long for politeness. It is a test. It is an experiment. It is looking for a subject it can mark down as positive for something it has learned how to do. I do not wave. I do not greet. I let my chin do the smallest amount possible and not a fraction more. The bare hinge motion you give a person whose dog is sniffing your dog's butt. The hand stays up like a student who did not hear the question and thinks the posture might earn credit. Behind me, a door opens and shuts again, fast, like a thought the brain knows it shouldn't think. A woman clears her throat somewhere near the oval S edge and does not bring a word to meet it. The body lowers its hand a degree and holds. The room, that pressure, that research, that ask dressed in decent clothes, rolls off the white like a smell that refuses to belong to any air but its own. It touches the fence and comes back. It goes into the crack by the curb and returns to the oval as if the oval were a dish in a kitchen sink where the hot water stays hottest longest. I keep my hand on my thigh, heel in, and I feel my bones learn that posture as if it were a tool. The body takes 2 steps forward and 2 steps back in the careful way people do on new porches. The oval dims the smallest amount. A moth makes a wrong at the edge of the light and recovers the way they do and goes on with its unacceptable little life. I wait the length of a bell's ring in a small room. That's a unit now. My head runs a new math for the town. The body leaves the oval, like a person backing out of a conversation that got away from them and chooses to go home by a path they've been avoiding. When it reaches the place where the street becomes a street again, it flickers in a way that would make children clap if anyone had taught them how to see it. It goes. The pressure eases. The oval waits. Nothing asks me for anything else. I go home with nothing to say and say it to the mirror. The mirror gives me back my mouth in a tight line, and I forgive it. Sunday gives me a morning like the ones you get in places where people stop trusting the weather. It is nice in a damp way. It is hot in a gentle way. It bends around you like a metal rack you can't reach the top shelf of. I eat toast, and it tastes like toast. I go down and open, and the bell takes the breath it needs. The job gives me a back of hand for a plumber who's learned to live that way, a blink and you miss it flower for a nurse who doesn't want hers to be the last kindness she holds. A lock of hair in line for a man whose hair went 2 summers back and who refuses to say he misses it. Late, toward close, the printer prints without a chirp, like a confession told in the car and not the kitchen. The page is hot enough I feel it through 2 fingers, and the words come up easy for once, like they have decided they want to be believed. If the hand learns your door, it will come to take your latch. Keep your hallway, keep your bell, keep your books in order, keep your mouth closed. When the last ask comes, do not wave. The last ask. The words sit in my lap like a child who just discovered lying and is high on it. I put the page in the drawer, and this time I do lock it. I don't like what that means about me, and I like what the other option means even less. I clean soft. I wipe easy. I set the machine into its cradle with a piece of gauze under the tip, because that has always been a little prayer of mine. Don't let the tools bite while they sleep. I turn the sign. The bell rings that little ring like a spoon tapping a thought, and the thought stops and finds a chair. At home, I put 2 more lines of painter's tape under the first, not because it will help, but because equipment has always calmed me. I count the lines and feel like a fool and keep them. I stand on my side and listen without leaning. The building makes its nightly transfers of weight. The mirror doesn't blink. A car goes by with music you can feel through your ribs, and then no more because the town earns the right to go quiet if it works decent all day. Sometime in the middle, the room asks with a softness it has saved. Not urgent, not begging, not pretending to be the voice of anyone I love. It asks like a workbook, a practice test, a friendly check. Do you know it now? Can you keep it? Have we learned each other enough that you will not spend what I need you to save? I do not answer. I am done being a subject of its studies. I keep my hand where I was told to keep it. I keep my mouth closed. I keep the bell as an idea in my chest. A ready, a small metal syllable I will not give to anyone who doesn't pay or doesn't mean to. I keep the hallway. It holds. Morning takes the night's face off and puts on its own. The radio tells me someone found a ladder in the creek dip, and no one knows whose it is. The woman with the painting hand comes in with her ankle done and wants a dot above the ladder because she thought of one more thing she can step over. I put the dot where she points. The printer gives me a blank with no heat at all, and I hate it more than the hot ones. I tilt it and get nothing. Some days, a silence is just a silence and not a promise. I hang the blank on the back of the drawer to remind myself that if there is a God of my trade, it has the same patience I think I do and better habits. Close comes on a wind that has decided to dress itself up as fall. The bell takes the breath it wanted. I put the bar through the back of the door because in this town, a bar through a back door still means you are tired enough to sleep. I turn my face to the mirror and do not give it anything. I listen for the printer. I go to touch the clock and remember the towel and the lesson and leave it under its towel to breathe. I pick up my bag and set it down again and look at the room. There is a rectangle in the glass, not bright, not the old rehearsal light. A dark that has learned to be darker than the dark around it, like a door that hates the hallway. Inside it, a chair, an armrest, a tray. The shape of a hand rising where it will find skin. The pressure in the room is not a wind this time. It is a temperature drop, a cold pocket under the stair, a cellar mouth. It asks without asking, an expectancy, a lean. The bell rings once with no pride in it. The line between me and it is one I laid down. I can feel it like painter's tape on a floor in a poor girl's hall. The last ask, maybe, or the practice for it, or just a town learning to wave at itself without making the mistake of greeting. I stand on my mark. I let my hand rest where it knows. I'm almost ready for anything that isn't mine to answer. The room waits with me. The question hangs. The night does what nights do when they are tired of being studied. It puts its paperwork away and hums a small song a person could fall asleep to. I lock. I leave. The bell puts its head down and sleeps too. And then the week turns itself and we go with it, a little steadier, a little worse, carrying a rule scribbled on hot paper and a handful of not greetings I meant with my whole body. The town holds the weather up with its wrists. I go on with the work. Monday starts with a polite knock from the city in the form of a notice taped to the glass, official blue that smears if you touch it before the sun gets a chance to cure the ink. Residents adjacent to the old brewery, window closure advisory due to a limited remediation event. That's language you learn to breathe through. Keep windows closed, limit outside activity after sundown. Avoid drawing water for non-essential uses during stated hours. Thank you for your cooperation. The town has a way of asking you to stand still, and then rewarding you with the pride of saying you did. I keep the front window latched and the back door propped with a leg of chair for draft, which is exactly the wrong combination and exactly the one I can stand. The air tastes faintly like pennies that have lived a long time in a jar nobody shakes anymore. The bakery keeps their oven door shut an extra beat each time to hold their smell in. The alley wears flour like a hush you can't wipe off. The morning goes like it wants to show off. Small jobs, neat lines. A man wants a date behind his ear he can't see without asking for help. He doesn't plan to ask. A woman wants a crooked star on her ankle for the reason people do that, which is none of my business. The coil warms and cools, and I remember how to breathe like it's part of my job again, which it is. The mirror does what glass does when you keep it fed, gives you back what you brought. The printer clears its throat around midday, then thinks better and swallows. I almost thank it. Around the hour when the heat on the block reaches the layer where it stops pretending it isn't so tired of itself, the printer takes its turn. A sheet, hot and quiet, glides out. The letters rise with the patience of a bruise. When the room asks from behind you, answer with the bell. You do not have to ring it, you have to keep it. When the latch feels like a mouth, feed it your silence. When the hand arrives with its palm up, do not count its lines. I set the page in the drawer and lay my palm on top of the stack until the warmth becomes wood. On the counter, the bell sits with its little head tilted like a bird, carved by a patient grandfather. I touch the rope, and it feels like a tendon in a strong hand. The latch on the front door gives a barely audible lick to the strike plate when the bakery walk-in compressor kicks on. You learn to sort the noises that belong to a street and the ones that belong to a story you should not be in. The compressor belongs to us. The bell belongs to me. The latch belongs to anything that learns how to want it. Late, I step outside to look at the notice again because the rubber stamp that says city does a number on nerves. A couple from 2 blocks over stands with their dog, reading each phrase twice like there might be a test. The dog licks the glass, then its nose, then the glass again because that's its job. "Do we need masks?" the woman asks the man, and he says, "I don't think so," in a voice that means he does not know what he thinks. They nod to me with their chins in the way of neighbors who want credit for effort and are owed exactly that amount. I nod back. My hand stays hooked in my pocket like the pocket, and I were in on something. The afternoon wears a helmet and goes to work. I lay a small mountain on a man's forearm because he misses the place where his lungs behaved. I set a ring of dots around a wrist because someone wanted to pretend they were a little planet, and this was their sky. The radio under the counter reads the same notice out loud as if it can pin paper to air. I shut it off. The room is enough voice. It's a short day. Remediation hours ask for an early close, and the city posts a line drawing of the tower on the ridge to make you feel like it's a church and you were good for listening. I turn the sign and test the bell's rope with 2 fingers, a tug to answer the printer's instruction without spending what the bell knows how to say. The rope gives, and the bell keeps its mouth. The latch makes its noise because metal does. I sweep and listen to the bristles make their small storm across the rubber moons. At home, the hallway smells like warm paint and old paper. I don't move the mirror. I don't test it. I put my heel to the tape because I promised myself I would. The window is shut and the room puts up with me. The fan pedals air so slow you could mistake it for mercy. I cook something that makes no smell and tastes like the memory of salt. I hold the bell in my head like a penny in a fist. The asking comes early, softer than the weather, like damp finding the hem of a coat. Not from the shop, from the hall. The urge to open is as old as a house. The door expects to be useful. I stand with my hand on the frame and feel the wood do that old house thing, leaning the smallest bit into the weight you bring it. The latch looks like every latch in the town. Cheap and sure and clean because hands taught it to shine. The ask presses the crack between door and jamb like a friend putting their mouth to the slit under a bathroom door to ask if you locked yourself in for a reason they need to know. I keep the bell inside my chest. I think of the rope. I think of the sound the bell makes when it is paid and how it sets the temperature for a whole room. I don't ring. I don't speak. I let the ask rub itself out against oak. The painter's tape at the threshold holds. It holds the way a line on paper holds, as an agreement, not a law. I stay on my side. The ask brightens through that narrow place, spreads itself through the grain, as if the door strand by strand could be taught a new rule, one about letting speech become a latch. If the latch were a mouth, would it have a tongue? A bell could be a jaw. I keep my teeth on words the way you keep a dog on heel. The lock itself is nothing special, a brass thing the landlord prefers because he can say he replaced it last winter. It feels solid. I put my forehead to the wood, not because I'm tired, but because I want to let the door taste me without giving it any letters. The ask recedes as if the hallway has other rooms, and mine has bored it. It leaves a print in the air like the smell after you pull a plug from a socket you forgot was warm. The mirror hangs there like a person trying hard not to be part of a story. I wash my hands and put my palm heel down against my chest because that S where it belongs. Sleep walks in with the slow shyness of a cat that has been kicked once and not by me. The next day, the notice comes off the glass at the shop in one criminally satisfying peal. The bakery's oven door swings loose and exhales batter. The antique man plays with his globes, dusting one with a cloth that will never forgive him. People come in who look like they climbed out from under the word advisory and remember how to lift their shoulders. I let them talk about weather and tires and those small civic victories no one else would believe. It keeps their mouths busy. It keeps them from saying my name to the room by accident. Around the hour when the first long shadow puts its knife through the door seam, the printer offers me 3 sheets in a row, all heat, the words shy, steady, stubborn. The white will follow you inside if you stand in it long enough to forget you were warned. Do not teach it your kitchen. Do not set a chair for it. It learns from furniture faster than it learns from faces. Then a second. When the last ask comes, it will feel like a neighbor who knows the name you had before this one. It will say it as if it is returning a thing you dropped. Do not take it back. Then the third. If you are asked to place your hand palm up, put your hand down instead. The room understands down. It does not understand open. I trade the page's heat for the drawers quiet, then trade the room for the lane outside, and stand with the notice shadows fade across the sidewalk, and a bicyclist runs the corner with 2 pizzas tethered flat behind him like flags for a parade I didn't know we earned. The bell rings for a woman who just wants to look, and for a boy who watches her look the way boys do when they are making a list of what the world is invited to keep. I wash my hands until I forget which things heat and which things cool in a shop like this. It happens at the hour you can call evening and not be challenged for it. A man in a hat, different hat, leans on the window at the edge of my sign, and for a second I am tired of every shape that looks like another shape, the way when you buy a red truck, suddenly every truck on the road is red. He isn't the man from the window. Not by the weight in his belly, not by his shoes. He lifts a hand, thoughtless, that small sibling wave you give a person when you hope they will unstick a door. My chin dips, the poor cousin of a greeting, and I hold my hands where they belong. He lowers his and seems relieved. Half the work I do is letting someone else keep the dignity they think they brought with them. He points to the old flash, and not a bird, not a heart. He points without picking. Tomorrow, I mouth. He nods in a way that means he expected me to say that and will come anyway. He goes, and the bell saves me from telling myself a story about him by ringing the way it rings when no one touched it, and a truck out on the road changed the pressure in the air. After close, I clean like a person whose hands aren't quite mine. I am too careful with the grip wrap. I am too neat with the caps. I write numbers as if they are words I might have to read aloud for meaning. I put the bell's rope into my hand to remind my body where sound lives. The clock speaks without words under the towel. The mirror holds what it can. Some nights it's a saint. Some nights it's a traitor. It is both fine. The envelope comes under the door without the courtesy of a draft to announce it. I hold it under the light, as if light can bless paper. The handwriting is the same sign painter block. Room will try to borrow from the street a name you already used up. It will say it with the sound of an empty shopping cart on cracked asphalt. If you think about the cart, you'll hear your name. Think about the sound the bell doesn't make. Think about the strip of tape. Think about the way a hand looks when it goes down to work instead of up to wave. No signature. The we from the last time keeps itself private. I put the envelope with the others in the drawer I won T-lock until I am someone who lies to myself more than I do today. The bell swallows the only breath it was considering and keeps the rest. At home, the hallway is a kind animal that doesn't ask to be pet. My neighbor's door is shut, and someone has left a pair of clean shoes by it. White, neat shoes that look like they were bought for a new job and not yet worn out of what their box believed they were. The painter S tape is a little scuffed where my heel learns it no matter how careful I think I am. I go to the mirror and stand where the frame ES bent screw tells it to be itself and not a door. I hold my mouth shut in the way that makes your ears ring a little. I breathe through it until it stops being a performance and becomes a thing my body could do while asleep. The ask waits as long as a kettle takes to draw heat into the middle and rattle its lid. Then it comes. Not from the door this time. From the wall where the mirror hangs. A slow push. Not a thing. A conviction. It wants the place where reflections get to cut in line. The mirror brightens a fraction. No light. Just looser dark, as if the glass thought about another room and got sentimental. I put 2 fingers on the frame and leave the smallest oil prints I'll scrub off in the morning with a cloth the color of not being careful. Here, I tell the frame without sound, "You're here." The ask spreads across the wall like steam and meets itself above the door and doesn't like how it tastes. It leaves the way a person leaves a kitchen they thought they could make themselves at home in, and then remembered they'd done it know where you keep the bowls. I put my hand to my chest and hold the heel there and sleep in a lean, as if the building and I are splitting the weight. Next day, I give a little coin on a girl's collarbone that makes her look braver to herself. I give a straight line to a man who insists he doesn't care if it holds, and then stares at the way it holds until his eyes water. I draw a small black box on a musician's wrist because he wants to keep a metronome in his body where nobody can steal it. The printer minds my business. The bell earns its keep. The mirror shares without inventing. Then an hour when the floor under the waiting chairs remembers a leak from a winter where the roof wasn't ours. The air cools across that scar in a way a foot will notice if it has a memory for that kind of thing. The printer wakes itself and gives me a single sheet with letters that come clean on the first tilt. If anyone calls you by the name, you won, to say close your mouth and lower your head like you are checking the weight of your hand. This is not submission. This is survival. The room mistakes the angle for work. It will look elsewhere for a face to speak to. I carry that sheet around the shop with me while I count caps and almost throw out 3 good elastics and then put them in my pocket the way an old man on a bus will hoard anything that stretches. I say nothing. The room listens for words and gets the clink of the trash bin and the rumble of a delivery truck and the low laugh of the kid who does flowers up the block and brings me one stained strip of stencil paper when a transfer comes out so clean he has to show somebody. I praise the strip like it's not my job to treat paper like a blessing. At close, the advisory lifts, a different one this time, a gusty line from the city about odors that don't mean poison and please stop calling. It makes me feel like I'm in a club I didn't enroll in. One of those where you learn the secret knock, and the secret ends up being that there are no more secrets, just masters of obvious, with badges. I turn the sign. The bell makes its clean word. The rectangle in the glass appears not as a brightness, but as an absence of reflection, which is a trick I've done with windows when I was a kid, to look at the street without admitting I was looking. Inside it, the chair, the armrest, the tray, the hand. It is not a hand yet, but it is so close to learning that even my bones know where their lines are. I stand my heel on my little tape. I lower my head like I'm checking the weight of my own work. Across the street, someone in a window turns a light on and then off, and in the moment between, I think I hear my name come in from the glass in a tone like a clerk calling a dry cleaning ticket. Quiet, perfunctory, saying a job and nothing else. I keep my mouth closed. The name floats unhooked in the air over the mat by the door, and then it flips itself like a fish dropped on a dock, remembers it's not wanted, and slides away under the counter where old ink caps go to die. The rectangle dulls like a thing that hasn't worked in a while and knows the trick is in practicing quietly. The bell makes a little roll like a bead in a cup, and the room grows interested in the other rooms it knows how to inhabit. The bakery, the antique shop, the laundromat that hums all night and never loses faith. I lock, not because I think the lock is a match for whatever wants me, but because locks mean you did your part. That night in the apartment, the ask comes not from the hallway, not from the mirror, not from the latch, not from the old hole for a knob somebody plastered over before I was born, but from the floor. A slow push upward, a steady suggestion, the way a basement calls a person who has left a load of wet clothes down there too long. I put my hand heel down to the spot under my clavicle and breathe the rhythm of the coil when it's waiting to be fed. The building answers back in kind, creak for creak, as if we've learned the song. A note is under my door in the morning, and I step on it because that's where I live now, in a place where the floor knows how to talk. It's the same hand, the same pressure, the pencil pressed through the thin into the secret copy below. They will start to come in pairs, so you can waste your no on one and keep it for the other. Do not. Your no is not a thing you spend. It is the water in a jug you refill by keeping your hand where you were told to. You have enough if you act like you do. There will be a person who learned your name from a desk and a person who learned your name from a mirror. They will argue in a doorway. Do not help. The room eats that note like sugar. I do what I can. I feed it the day. A shoulder, an ankle, a wrist, hands that want to wave, and then, in my chair, learn to rest instead, palms down, knuckles easy. I teach the kid with the rabbit how to coat a mark and not baby it. He says, "Thanks, Mom," and I let the word pass me by because it doesn't know me. It only knows the shape of help. Near close, the arguing happens exactly the way the note said, because a town is nothing if not reliable in its tricks. Two voices at the door, one with the flatness of a person who reads names from forms all day and matches them to facts. One with the vagrant shape of a man who learned words from glass. My name is there, worn by one voice like a jacket and by the other like a rumor. The first voice says it the way a nurse does, crisp, with a pause after the last letter so you can walk toward it and sign a paper and then vanish into your own day. The second voice says it with a secret in the last breath, like it has lined up my name on the table and now would like me to admire how even the letters are. I stand with my hand heel down where it belongs and lower my head to check its weight and say nothing. The door admits nobody. The bell refuses to perform until it's paid. The latch is a mouth without tongue. The rectangle in the glass is a sulk. The voices find other glass to practice on. They go. The room learns a little and forgives a little, and neither is enough to make me ask it to love me. I tell the mirror good night with my chin, and the mirror nods like a bodega owner who has decided I can be trusted to come back with the dollar for the gum I needed right now. The city posts another notice the next day about water pressure, which in this town is the language we use when we mean what isn't water, and men in shirts the exact wrong blue for comfort carry cones and tape them around a hole you could lose a heel to. The bakery shuts their back door, and the alley plays at being quiet better than the people do. The antique man performs an inventory of lamps and audibly forgives half of them. I put a small moth on a woman's wrist who is tired of pretending she hates the creatures that make her flinch. The coil hums pleasant as an appliance you can fix with a twist and not a call. The printer feeds a sheet hotter than the rest. The words pop up like oil finding water. Last ask comes when you are offered your mouth back. You won't like how empty you feel if you accept. Keep the bell, keep the hallway, keep the mirror, keep the latch a mouth you do not feed. If your hand feels called to wave, put it down. Down turns into work. Work turns into hours. Hours turn into a room you can live in. I carry the sheet to the drawer and stand with the wood closed under my hand until the heat quits. The bell and I count breaths that aren't ours to spend. The clock decides to tick. Night comes sideways. How else? The street from the brewery draws a white oval over itself where the flood behind the fence points and refuses to blink. The advisory has been lifted for the night. The town keeps it anyway because people learn rules faster than the city remembers it made them. I lock my door as if it matters and stand inside the painter's tape and try to remember my mother's voice when she said goodnight to the shop, which was the same as saying goodnight to the person she was when she stood under the light and kept the bell fed. The ask arrives without drama. It inhabits the lint that lives under the radiator. It curls up in the shadow behind the trash can. It tries the latch. The latch would be a tongue if I let it. I don't. The bell sits in my chest and keeps its note like a penny keeps its copper, even after mouths have sucked it for luck. The ask does the thing I knew it would eventually do. It uses my name. Not the one I was born with, not the one I wear to work, not the one a boy said when he waved from behind a mower. The name I say only once a year to a woman in an office the color of a bruised peach when she checks it twice and asks me to spell it like it could be any other way. It tries my name like a door. It lifts the syllables as if a spirit level could set them float and teach me where to put my weight. It waits, generous, eager to be the cleverest thing in the room. It offers my mouth back to me. It implies I've been missing it. I lower my head the way the note told me. I put my heel-down hand to my chest and feel my ribs do the small move they learned when I was a kid and pretended to be asleep on the couch, and my mother picked me up wrong because she was tired, and I held my breath to make it easier for her. I hold it in, then let it go. The name hangs on the wall over the tape and shakes like a fishing lure when a fish has thought better. It drops. It crawls under the baseboard. It will find me another night if I let it. I don't. The ask tries to soften. It tries to sweeten. It tries to borrow the kindly breath of the fish fry lady, the patience of the diner waitress, the rhythm of the kid who says ma'am and means it. It dresses itself in good town and stands at the edge of the painter S tape with the posture of a person about to ask whether you've got a minute for something that take 1 minute and will change who you are at your address. It waits for me to wave. It will settle for a mouth. It will accept any word I choose, so long as it is a word. The silence I feed it is thick as oatmeal. It can't drink it. It wants soup and I don't have any. In that standstill, from the stair outside, a shoe scuffs. Then the smallest clearing of a throat I would not put money on being human or otherwise. The ask turns its head. It can be jealous. That is a thing I can use. I keep my hand down. I keep my mouth closed. I press my heel to the line like the line can remember somebody before me who stood here and held fast and taught a landlord how to think about a lock. The throat clears again. Someone is there, the kind of someone who stands in a stairwell quiet as a coat rack and makes the air around them think twice. I feel the bell sit up inside my chest, ready but not begging. I hold it there. I hold it hard enough to make my teeth notice. The ask slides toward the stair the way a cat slides toward the person in the room most likely to forget they are allergic. I open the door the smallest amount. The painter's tape looks ridiculous from there. 2 little sea-green bones at the throat of a house. The stair reveals nobody and the specific smell of a neighbor's dryer sheet. The ask S pressure pushes past my cheek to see if the hall or my place will blink first. I let it, because letting is sometimes the rope you throw yourself when you don't have room to pull. It pulls there, impatient and polite. Downstairs at the shop, the bell rings exactly the note it was born to. Clean, round, a syllable with no letter on it. The bell holds that note for me because I can reach it with my hands at the moment. And the building decides between us whose job it is to interview whatever stands in the street. This late, thinking doors are an easy kind of math. I close my door, not hard, not soft, something like faithful. The ask thins, the pressure folds, the way a flag folds, into a triangle that can be hidden in a drawer and taken out on days the town thinks it can afford to remember. It leaves through the path it came by, the old hole plastered over, the baseboard, the cheap gap under the door. The ways a room refuses to be a noun. I sit on the floor and realize my heel-down hand has made a small ache where it sits because no muscle wants to do one job all night. I let the ache have my attention. I give it water. When the ache releases, the mirror shows me nothing I can use in a story. It is a good mirror. It holds its mouth shut like I do. In the morning, the printer prints nothing, and I am glad in a hard way, like a kid glad to have no homework because they meant to do it, and then didn't. The bell sits. The drawer keeps. The job does not ask for my name or anyone else's. I put a clean line around a man's wrist who needed a loop he calls a promise. I draw 3 dots on the back of a woman's hand who says she needs to stop thinking she needs more than that. I give a swallow to a boy who isn't out the boy and doesn't it know him and waves with his chin as if we are both practicing for a language that will cost less than the one we use now. The city takes its cones down and leaves chalk marks on the street like someone tried to sketch a better town and got called to dinner. The bakery's walk-in breathes a sigh you can smell. The antique man sets a lamp in his window that makes everything in my lobby look kinder, which is a trick and a gift, and both at once. I keep the bell as rope in my fingers until Ivy told it the one thing I want it to know. You and me, we only talk when we must. Close is the kind that thinks it's easy, which is the worst kind. I turn the sign. The rectangle in the glass is already there. The chair, the armrest, the tray. The hand, like an invitation I have learned to RSVP to with work and not with a mouth. It is a full hand tonight, lines laid, knuckles hinted, veins mapped, crescent notched under the bone like a signature you don't remember signing. The room leans, the bell waits, the latch holds its tongue. The mirror gives me my shoulder and refuses to provide architecture to anything that is not me. Last thing before the last thing, I hear without a sound, because the paper taught me those words, and when ink won't write them, heat will. I lower my head. I check the weight of my hand. I hold the bell in my chest like a kiss I'd rather spend on a room that learned my name the way trees learn their rings. I am ready to do the thing I have been practicing, the thing that looks like rudeness and is respect. The door moves the smallest amount, not because a hand pushed it, but because the whole building shrugged its shoulder and the door wanted to mimic. I put my heel to the tape in my head and I keep it there. The hand in the rectangle lifts from the tray and hovers over what would be my wrist if I gave it. It waits. It could wait all night. I know that now. I wait too. I could wait longer. In the space between one breath and the next, a second hand appears beside the first. Clumsy, childish, a mirror taught wrong, palm up, asking for what hands ask when they have forgotten they were made for work. Two hands, one for me, one for anybody else. A 2-for-1 measure the town knows how to call a bargain. Pairs, the note said. Spend your no on both or on neither, it didn't say. It asked me to act like my jug is full. I set my hand down on the counter, heel first, where it knows the place to be. I put the other one down too. The bell and I keep our silence. The rectangle brightens just a fraction, then dims. It pulls its hands back and sets them on their own tray. It learns nothing new and doesn't like that. It will try again. I lock the door. The bell rings once anyway because the air owes it that much for the strain. The room puts its weight where it can bear it. I go home with the knowledge that the last ask is as patient as bread and as greedy, and that I will have to meet it without counting the number of times I have practiced not knowing my name. The town rocks on its small hips and hums like it has a baby to keep asleep. I lay my hand where it belongs and let my mouth miss its work. The night waits with me, both of us rude in the right ways. They post a new notice on the pole by the municipal where the chalk from the last advisory still ghosts the word closure if you tilt your head right. This one doesn't even try to be gentle. Do not enter the fenced area behind the brewery after sundown. Do not congregate near the white light. Report lingering odors to the listed number during office hours. Tell your neighbors. The font is the kind that looks official, no matter what it says. Somebody SS child draws a smile under the last line, and someone else rubs it out with a thumb until it becomes a bruise on the paper, and then the wind takes the corner up and the whole thing flaps to the rhythm of a block that pretends to be calm. I keep the bell's rope in my hand more than I should that day. When I let it go, my fingers carry its dust, and the green soap stings the dust and makes the sting mean something for a second. The printer works like a gentleman between 10 and 1, and then goes still. The mirror keeps up. The clock ticks its modest sentence under the towel, and I don't lift it because I don't need the exact numbers to know when the bone of a day is coming up. People come. They always do when the city tells them not to. Less bravado, more stubbornness. A bride-to-be wants a line of ink on the inside of her arm, so thin it might as well be a suggestion. She says she wants to remember to hold something when she forgets to breathe. I run it soft and simple, and she looks at it like she's the sort of person who will keep it clean because it's work, and not because a stranger told her to. A boy asks for an orange without color, because he says the word alone is enough. I give him a circle that is very slightly oval, because an orange that isn't tea is a lie, and he thanks me like I gave him fruit. In the middle of afternoon, the door opens, and the bell takes its word like it got paid for once with the exact right coin. The woman with the paint on her knuckles from the ladder comes in and asks for another dot, and I suggest above the ankle, because when I saw her last, she wore a sock of respect about her line, and a dot would respect it better from the new angle. She nods because she thinks I called her brave. We do that for each other in this town, pretend the math of a body holds when we add one more truth to it. She leaves before the white light behind the brewery would find her if she came this way. When the day gives its last chores up with the kind of clerical sigh that makes even a neat person let the broom lean, I hover at the sign, meaning to turn it and only finding the elbow for it after I stand there with my palm on the glass, long enough to teach the pain my temperature. I flip the word because rules are a fence you build for yourself when you want an excuse not to hop the other one. The bell waits. The printer does not. The room takes stock of itself the way a person does before company, hand to hair, thumb to tooth, the meaningless grooming of a creature that has already made up its mind. A page slips out of the printer, hot as a skillet. The letters climb from heat like bread from a pan. Last ask will look like an old favor owed to a good neighbor. It will ask for the small yes that makes bigger ones free. If you can't refuse it, refuse the wave. If the wave makes you, put your hand down where it belongs and wait. You are not a door, neither are your hands. I push the page into the drawer, and the stack takes it like a cautious mouth. The key sits in the lock, and I turn it without thinking, which is a warning I note and do nothing about. The bell reads the air and decides to stay quiet until real feet cross a line. The latch licks its plate, because metal does that when it knows it is responsible. The antique man leans in the door with his inventory behind him, lit up like a little theater about chairs. "You closing now?" he asks, as if the word on the sign is a suggestion and not what it is. He wants to talk about a light that doesn't work, the flood behind the bakery, the kid who drew a smile on the notice and got scolded by nobody. I give him the two nods that make men like him happy. Yes to your story. Yes to your existence. When he leaves, he says, "Polite to you," because he doesn't know how to say anything like trust. On my way home, the alley breathes bread. A cat tips a bin with a patience that should worry us more than it does. The white oval down by the brewery yokes the night where somebody decided illumination means safety. Kids throw rocks toward it and behave when rock meets fence without bounce. They walk away, looking back over a shoulder because the light requires witnesses even when it does not intend to perform. When I pass, the oval does that pulse it does when the compressor on the brewery's failing unit hiccups. A slow bright that isn't light, a tightening in the air like a hand learning where the ceiling is. The hallway offers me my line with the painter's tape politely scuffed by heels. The mirror sits where the screw holds it and pretends to be a small lake, if a small lake could learn to forgive itself for reflecting the same shoreline every day. I put my hand heel down on my chest, because that is where it belongs, when nothing asks for it. And I try to breathe like someone who puts their tools away in the same order and finds them where they expect in the morning. The asking comes from the floor again, up through the joists and the nail heads and the scars where 100 years of lives thought they could change the angle of a building and were wrong. Not a push, a welcome, the way a shop door breathes when it smells money. If I let it, it would pull me over the tape as if the tape were the lip of a rug and not a rule. I don't let it. I stand so still a person downstairs could think the ceiling sagged. The ask presses my name against the door with the care of a person pinning a note to a corkboard. See me, then forget me. It mispronounces. It spells the end wrong. That mistake is mercy. It falls away like paint taken by a damp cloth. Morning shows the street in its undershirt, bins half up on their wheels, a man with a broom pretending he doesn't need a pan, women standing in dresses that look like errands. I go down early to the shop because sometimes you can make the day be the day by starting it before it has the chance to go somewhere else. The bell is a saint in the morning when the bell wishes for strong coffee and gets it only when someone aspires to manners. The mirror gives me back the flinch in my shoulder I pretend isn't new. The printer waits like a dog that learned to take a treat only when you tell it its name and you know better than to. First appointment is a kid whose hand shakes when he takes off his jacket, a shake he keeps tamped down by jamming his fingers between the teeth of the zipper and holding on to himself. He wants a circle on his shoulder blade because he thinks his life is two halves and a whole will be a truth to hold. I tell him about curvature and skin and scale and how circles need respect or they become coins you never spend. He nods like he heard a sermon once and took one word home and wrote it on a napkin and kept it. I press the purple. He breathes wrong. I count him into the rhythm and he finds it. When we are done, he turns to the mirror, and for a breath, he looks like a man who has accepted himself on a small piece of real estate. It's enough. Then, in the gap between him paying and me writing down the line for the autoclave I'll run at lunch, the first of the pairs steps in. Two bodies, not mirror images, not twins. Like when a bird lands on the power line beside another with a gap that tells you they did not plan to arrive together and are embarrassed by it. The first says my name in a voice that suggests he had it from a desk, crisp, not unkind. The syllables marched forward like men in new boots. The second says my name with the ease of someone who found it written backward in a pane and practiced until it felt like fruit. They say it one after the other, and I feel the room wait to see which will teach the other how to be true. I lower my head as if I am checking the weight of my own hand. My heel goes to the tape on the floor without the rest of me following the motion, which is something they do not tell you you can train. Your heel gets tired of being ahead and starts leading in emergencies. My mouth closes. The bell keeps its withholding. The first voice tries again, friendly this time like a clerk trying a different approach. The second brightens like glass, wets itself in rain, and holds a smear until it learns to drip. I say nothing. They stand like two men at a counter choosing between sizes. The first gives up. He wanted a form signed, and he is trained in the ways of bringing your body where your pen needs to be before you attend to further detail. The second lingers, as if he could learn to be both hands if only I would help. I don't. A thank you that isn't a T leaves the space where a thank you would and teaches me something about air. They go. The bell gets its coin at last and pays me with the sound I've been buying all along. At lunch, the autoclave swallows the packets and the indicator strip goes from beige to the color that proves the work took. I hang it and make a note. The printer breathes and gives me a sheet with letters like a skin where somebody pinched and nobody apologized. Our approach is when your mouth will be offered back to you as a courtesy. It is not. Keep it where you keep the bell. Let the door speak. Let the latch breathe. If anyone says the name the nurse uses, lower your face to your hand and count to the rhythm that kept you through. Do not use any language the room knows how to own. Afternoon, the fish fry woman stops by and slides a plate across the counter like a slide at a church basement and tells me she didn't see me last time and wanted to keep me in the habit of accepting favors. She inspects herself in the mirror and says, "One of these days, I'll sit for something that helps me keep track, and I don't ask what." She taps the bell with her nail, and the bell makes a small sound. which in another context would be rude, and here is merely accurate. "You keep that," she says, not looking at me, and sets the plate down with its grease settling into the paper with the steadiness of a weather we might deserve. She goes without asking me to say anything she can write down as proof later she was here. She knows better than to ask for a receipt from a room. Early evening, a man with a mountain on his arm the size of a bread loaf comes in to ask for a wave of blue to sit in the valley, because he moved and misses what mist does to the mood of a ridge. I tell him what I can do and what I won't pretend to, and he decides his memory has color but doesn't need it on him. He thanks me like I spared him the trouble of pretending. I wash my hands and the water is the temperature of a poured-out day. The bell hangs and refuses to be the kind of thing you can play. I don't talk to anyone else until the last person who owes me for the day comes late and leaves cash in the little tray at the counter because he thinks that is what a person does when they have nothing else to say that wanna get them into trouble later. I put the cash where it goes. I flip the sign. The room draws itself into the size it prefers when there is only one heartbeat. The mirror does not lag. The printer warms without speaking the way a child warms her hands under a dryer without believing the air is for her. White drops over the rectangle in the window like muscle memory, not light, shape. Inside it, the chair I own, the armrest I clean every night and every morning as though the marks a body leaves could learn to sin. The tray I'll replace in winter because you have to admit a surface learns the minds it holds. The hand rises, full tonight, the lines carved cleaner than any machine I could set to skin. The crescent under the bone, neat as a memory that will not fade. Not because it won't, but because your mind won't let it. The hand holds itself like an invitation only a fool would mistake for a dare. The last ask comes in a neighbor's voice. Of course it does. A man down the stairs with a pleasant shape in the middle, a set of keys that jingle when he walks, a habit of turning his head before his body the way some birds do, so they can keep their balance better in a small wind. "You left your mouth here," it says. His same voice, the angle of it exactly right, the fatigue a dear day leaves in a throat. "You want it?" My mouth warms to the word yes, the way a coin warms in a pocket from being touched when you were thinking. I lower my head. Heel finds tape, hand finds chest. The bell inside my ribs sets its circumference and waits. The last ask is kind, no beg, no push. It is the sound a person makes at your door when they are too proud to knock and too tired to walk away. It uses my name not as an address, but as a place to set the bowl while it unknots a bag. It says the name the nurse uses to check me twice, and I do not count the seconds until it stops, because if I count, I will teach it math. I hold in my chest the warmth you get from a fan that kept up most of the season and lies down now that the weather has changed. The latch feels like a mouth. The printer sneaks a page through hot as a fresh coin, and I feel it lift off and land without looking because my eyes are busy with the part of the shop that wants to be a church. The bell refuses to be part of any ritual I haven't signed for. The rectangle holds its terms, silent, bright in the way darkness gets when it thinks it owns you. Someone moves in the hall, a shoe dragged like a second thought. The last ask shifts its head toward the noise, jealous. It will leave me for a moment to make sure no mouth more eager than mine stands ready to be donated. I know that now. It has the same hunger everything has when it believes it is a public service. I set my hands down, palms where they belong, heel to bone, one each side of the tray, the way I would stand if I were about to line my own skin. The white dims, half a shade, and grows by that dimness stronger the way snow does when the nights get consistent. The hand hovers a breath above my imagined wrist. Waiting teaches a hunt more than running ever did. I give it nothing. I give the bell in my chest all of my breath so it can hold the sound it does not make quietly. The latch takes in and gives out like a tide on a small shore. My name comes again, not in the neighbor's voice now, in my mother's. Not the weekday voice she used when the shop was open and she counted change, and we ate rice out of styrofoam in the back room, and she told a man to come back in an hour if he wanted a better line. Not the patient voice she used when I cut my wrist on a can and refused stitches. Her tired voice, the one she used when the bank wanted her to stand on one side of a desk and a man with a pen wanted her to stand on another. The voice the town took from her on a night it still pretends it didn't. "Come on," she says, "I need you here." I lower my head as if to agree and put my forehead to the heel of my hand and find there the roughness of a person who has worked. The angle reads like work. The room buys the angle. It believes I am starting the kind of labor it loves best. In that room, I hear a noise from outside that means nothing and everything. A laugh from a child brave enough to be out this late because their adult is teaching them rules, like those that keep cats off stoves. It's the wrong laugh, and it's right. The last ask melts a shade. Another noise. The waitress from the diner dropping a spoon in a sink and calling it a word that would make her old pastor shake his head and her mother proud. The last ask checks this hallway and the next for a mouth to slide into and picks a door I am not responsible for. Good. It's rude. I'm ruder. I raise my head because the paper taught me this much. Rudeness can save everything if you practice without hate. The rectangle brightens itself stupid to hold my eye. The hand lifts, the wrist follows. If I opened my mouth, I could give it what it thinks it deserves. I don't. It waits one more measure. Coil warming, clip cord heavy, foot pedal cold the way a wrench is when it has been sitting under a floorboard all winter. It learns what the bell sounds like when it is not sounding. It learns my posture. It will use that against me later, or it will not. The hand drops to the tray without touching anything. The way a disappointed child remembers manners in the hallway outside a closed door. The rectangle goes soft around its edges, a fog of glass. It keeps a little of itself, as if to say we are not finished. It is correct. The shop will not be done with me until one of us leaves this block by a method that does not count as walking. The printer cools the page. I don't look at it until I am home with the lamp that eats pennies for breakfast and tries to make light work of money. It says, "In heat that smears if your hand sweats, you kept the bell." Good. Your name will come back missing letters. Let it. Do not offer to fill them in. You kept the latch. You kept the hallway. You did not wave. Last ask will come to be counted, and you will count it by not counting anything. After, you can open in the morning. Do not greet. I hang the page on the inside of the cabinet where I keep cotton rolls, and one old jar of buttons I inherited from the shop mothered into me. The heat leaves it, and it becomes paper again, and I doubt myself. And then I move my hand across the place where the letters were, and the warmth there remembers enough for me to remember enough. It will have to do. There is a way nights end when the building has asked too much. The floorboards get honest. The fan gives a small cough and then runs as if to make up for it. A sound in a pipe makes you think of every person you never said goodbye to properly. Upstairs, a neighbor breathes in the way an old man does when his chest won. Stand for any more, and then somehow he keeps going. I sleep like a person who put a lid on a jar and hopes the jar keeps the moth that managed to get inside off the scarf they never wear because they think it makes their face look like somebody else. Morning is a town in a shirt with its name sewn into it, a coffee under the arm, a wiped booth at the diner, a man fixing a sign with a ladder he should not trust. I go down and open because the printer told me I could, which is as stupid as listening to a machine, except that this machine has done more for me than any official dead tree letter I've ever filed has. The bell says its little word. The mirror plays along. The first person of the day is the kid with trembling hands. He brings me a picture of his circle from last night and thanks me for letting him become a person who can see a round thing and believe it is his. I give him a nod that costs me nothing and him a cup of water, because people here forget to drink when they are busy not greeting their own lives. Then there's a man with salt at his temple and a disappointment rolled into a ball and shoved under his collar, who wants a dog on his calf to remind him how to watch a door without being invited in. I draw him a dog whose ears don't say everything, because I am not willing to be a liar for a man who needs the dog to tell him the truth he already knows. He leaves slower than he came. That is rare, and I attach merit to it the way a person nails a coin to a bar top where it has no value but helps talk fill up an hour. Midday, while the clock under its towel says what clocks say without raising its voice, the fish fry lady appears with a cup of coffee and says, "I poured this for you from the church urn, because if I took it home, it would taste like church, and I want you to have a drink that tastes like work." She's proud of that and right to be. I accept, say thank you with my chin, and she tells me her niece wants a small thing to hold in her hand when she is nervous, not a tattoo, a something. I give her a grip cover from a roll I keep for my machine and tell her it smells like rubber and will keep her niece from chewing her finger to the bone during math class. She blesses me with that sideways hand wave used here when you want to say something that covers a lot of ground and would sound foolish as words. I take the blessing into the room the way a person takes a toolbox into a crawl space. A little grateful, a little worried about what I'll meet. Afternoon comes, and with it weather. Not rain, not wind, just that weather that belongs to an old roof when it cannot make up its mind if it needs you or you need it. The bell rings once for nothing and then sulks. The printer warms enough to soften the paper in its tray, so when my fingers slide the top sheet to lay it for a small anchor behind a woman's ear, it leaves heat on me that holds a fraction of a second longer than heat should. I use that second as a place to stand, because seconds often make the best places. The last ask chooses the hour when the town sighs and gives up, and everything has the tone of a shopkeeper pulling a blind. It does not come from the brewery oval, though I'm sure it can see itself in that light when it wants to feel good about its complexion. It does not come through the mirror, though the mirror hums under its screws when it is near, and that makes me think ghosts are physics a person refuses to learn. It does not come through the latch the way a mouth would. It comes by the bell, not like a ring, not like a pull. It comes as a set of fingers that have learned to lay on a bell rope lightly enough that even the rope thinks that's just air. The bell, sainted thing, holds its mouth. The rope murmurs the way your arm does when you lean against a door and the door leans back. The last ask tries out my name with a new mouth, a combination of voices the way bread dough carries the last loaf in it. It calls me by the name the nurse calls me, and then by the one my mother used when she was tired, and by the one boys all turn to in a certain kind of bar when they want to show off, and by the one a past I won to give the town tries on for me when it thinks I am sleeping. I lower my head. I hold my hand where it belongs. I do not wave. The last ask reaches in the way the sea will reach into a dry creek bed when it pretends it can take every place and fails. It finds my mouth and offers it back the way the old men at the hardware store offer you a nail for free because they like your face. I do not take it. It tries to be offended. It tries to be patient. It tries to be tired. I am everything it says it is and less. Then it does the oldest thing. It drops my name and fills the room with a sound that makes every animal turn its head, a person saying hello. Not my name, not anyone's. Just the word that buys you a face. Just that small payment you make on the chance the receiver will give you a cup or a seat or a hand. It says hello like a rain on metal. It says hello like winter getting into bricks. It says hello like the bell would if the bell wanted to be our boss. The room tilts to it, hungry. The rectangle in the window learns an edge and sharpens it. The hand over my imaginary wrist lowers as if I agreed. The latch moves a memory for the bell. The printer nears a sheet the way a shy person nears a joke. I keep my mouth closed. The hello walks around the counter and stands behind me. I feel the drop in air temperature across the knuckles, where a person's breath would make another person forgive them. My chin begs for the small answer that would keep me from being rude in a town that still believes rudeness is an injury you can sue for. I hold the bell in my chest and lean into it like a bicycle into an ugly wind. It holds me. It had better. It does. For a span longer than a bell ring and shorter than a song, the hello does not know what to do with itself. You take that word away from people and they become hilarious or mean. This hello turns mean, not in words, in intent. The hand over my wrist turns palm up, needy with the fervor of a drowning thing that learned in a book you should open your hand to make help appear. It waits. I lower my head as if to give it mercy in the form of my attention, and then give it nothing but the top of my skull, so it will learn the difference between being seen and being owed. The hello dies. The room remembers a different grammar. The rectangle in the glass drains itself until it is once again only the memory of a door inside a door. The hand sets itself down on its own tray and pretends it was always a picture. The latch corrects to a latch. The bell lies down in its little bed like a dog proved it could behave. The printer does not print. The towel over the clock lets the tick through in fair measure again, and I forgive the clock the arrogance of keeping track when none of us is owed that kind of knowing. I lock the door, and the bell refuses to ring as if it knows I deserve the quiet. Outside, the white by the brewery oval keeps its appointment with itself and signals to whoever wants to make the mistake. I walk home not by the alleys that taste like sugar, but by streets that smell like wet screen windows and hot paint. I stand at the tape with my heel, and nothing needs to ask me to keep to my side. In the morning, the printer prints, not hot, not odd. A simple paper. It shows a bird, not the swallow. A gull with its head turned the way gulls do when they suspect you of holding a handout. Under it, a single line in faint letters, like you get with a dying ribbon. You have a room, keep it. For a time we will not ask. You will be asked again. I keep the paper with the others, but I do not lock the drawer. I change my grip wrap, and the machine takes it like an animal that forgives you the harness because you held carrots behind your back. I open the door. The bell says its word. The town gets on with the business of being a place people pass through and stick to and argue with and protect. The bakery smells like a good decision someone else made. The antique man tunes his lamp so it stops lying. The laundromat gives up the last of its overnight heat. The woman who wanted the ladder shows me the dot and tells me her knee quit giving reports. The nurse comes in for the flower she promised herself. The boy with the bee rides by on a different kid, Spike, and the oval down by the brewery holds a pair of fools in its edge for a minute and then forgives them. I put down lines. I put down wipes. I write the autoclave in a hand a person could read later if a person needed to see if I cared about them when they weren't tea in the room. And this is the kind of sentence the town writes, with a conjunction and nothing after, because we are not poets. We are owners of keys and cleaners of drains and mixers of batter and replacers of brittle signs. And weeks don't end here, they loosen. I keep the bell, I keep the latch, I keep the hallway. I touch the mirror only with the cloth it likes and the word inside my head I won. T say out loud. The white behind the brewery learns to behave like a dog when it sees a leash. It flares for attention, and the town looks away like we promised each other we would, unless somebody AS child is in it, and then we know what to do with our bodies. We are not saints. We are a place. That is enough. One small change. Under the skin at the heel of my palm, where the diagram printed return, a line appears that I did not put there. Not ink, not scar, not bruise. A tempering. Like the state metal learns when it cools the right way and agrees to hold. When I hold my hand up to the light in the back room and tilt, it looks like the world wrote a thought in me with a pencil and then erased it and left the groove. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't please. It keeps. I keep working. Customers tell me things they mean to tell their mirrors and can't. I take them and put them down where they belong. I do not greet. I practice being rude where that saves more than it breaks. A man from a desk comes twice and reads names outside my door, like he thinks the names themselves owe him a bit of meat. He tries mine, and the door itself steals the word and puts it under a baseboard for later. A boy waves, and I give him my chin, and he learns that not every hand is a door. The fish fry lady sits in my chair one afternoon and tells me to give her a small line where she burned herself on a pan, so it will look like it meant something. I make it like a stitch. She kisses her fingers and touches the bell, and the bell refuses to ring because it knew she did not mean to ask. In the mirror at home, the screw holds, the glass does its job, the hallway keeps its line. The smell of ink comes and goes, and I tell myself it is only the smell of work, not the smell of a study practiced on me until it learned I would not be an easy subject. Behind the brewery, the city finally locks the fence properly, and a man tapes a new notice over the old, and the old curls under it like a healed scab. Children stop at the oval the way children stop at puddles. They look and make their decision, and the good ones do not jump, and the ones who jump learn something about shoes. The antique man finds a mirror that lies more beautifully than mine and charges a price that will make him feel like a person who can wave when he wants. The bakery buys a new mixer, and the old one hums secretly in the alley like a heart no one was supposed to hear. You would think the printer would stop. It doesn't. It prints less often. When it does, it is shy with its heat. The letters come slow, and my eyes go slow to them. A line here: if a man asks for a bird, you may give him one. Another there: if someone says your name in a voice you could love, you may love them and still not greet. A last: keep the bell until your hands are done. Then you can put it in a drawer and let someone else think they learned it. I count my yeses now. I give them the way you pass cups at a fish fry, one to a hand that knows how to hold, one to a hand learning, one to a hand that will spill and pretend not to. I do not say hello to a rectangle in a window. I do not teach my wave to a room. If the last ask comes again, it will do it on another block or at another door, or in a year where the weather makes us forget how good we had it when our power lines stayed put and our towers took their mains and the bakery didn't sneeze flour into everybody else's stories. Maybe it will try when the tape at my threshold has worn to the suggestion of a line, and I have to trust the way my heel remembered it more than the way my eyes could see. That's the kind of game a town plays with you when it thinks you got a little too sure. Until then, I make the work I can hold. I wipe, I press, I line, I put my heel on a mark, I keep the drawer, I pour water, I keep quiet in the ways that matter and not in the ways that break you. The bell rings when it is paid, the latch stays a mouth I don't feed. The mirror offers me the same shoreline. The printer sleeps like a machine that has done its part. My hand, where the heel remembered return, stays marked in its own mild way like a coin you keep because it feels lucky, even though that is not a word we admit here in town. I go on. The room goes on. People come in with their good reasons and leave with a little work and a care sheet and something under their bandage that will itch the way truth does when you have to live with it. And some nights, because you don't change your wiring all at once, even if a machine prints you a better plan, I wake to the bell in my chest, ringing the small, perfect note I keep for it, and I say my name in my head, the way a person tests a word after a long fast, and I do not open the door to see whether the room has learned how to mouth it back. I lie there and let the sound fade and try to give it to nobody and no room, and in the morning washed and fed and holding my coffee that tastes like work and nothing like church, I unlock a door I have taught not to be a mouth and I let the town in. They don't greet, not at first. That's my doing a little. Then they start, and I forgive them, because this is a place where daily we make small vows to things that don't to know us, and keep them anyway. I draw the birds and the fences and the ladders and the keys and the dots, the swallow lands, without a map in its tail. The coil warms and cools, and the hum holds me the way a good machine invites and never insists. The clock under the towel eats seconds like grain. The flower in the alley drifts and settles. The light at the end of the stub burns less bright. The city posts its mad blue, and then takes it down, and then posts something else. The bell rings, the bell keeps, the room keeps. I keep. If you stand in my shop in the evening on a day when the weather behaved and the town learned to stop waving at what want to feed them, you can see it sometimes in the window, an almost door, an almost hand, the way glass remembers. I do not greet. I put my hand down where it belongs. I do the work. I let the last ask slide to the floor like a dish towel a person finally retires because it has a hole right where you hold it, and you are tired of pretending it could keep anything from burning. The towel is still in the drawer for now because I keep things until I'm done telling myself why I kept them. I will keep the bell until my hands are finished. After that, somebody else can learn the sound a door makes when it isn't a mouth anymore. The town holds. It won't forever. That's not the kind of story small places consent to. But it holds while I stand where my heel has learned to. And it holds while I let the day print me a list of what not to say. And it holds while the printer goes back to being a printer. And it holds while a boy waves, and I give him my chin. And it holds while I draw the small work that people can live under like weather. The hand under my skin stays quiet. The bell waits. The room asks less, for now, which is not the same as stopping. When it asks again, and it will ask, I will keep my mouth closed and my hand down and my heel on the line, rude and alive as a person who owns their hours. When I lock at night, the metal kisses the strike plate in that small way it has adopted, the kiss you teach it by not making a performance out of closing. The bell doesn't ring. The mirror conducts no business. The printer cools its own throat. The shop smells like green soap and honest fear, and the plastic of new gloves and the metal the building keeps in its bones. I shut the light, and the dark comes in like a colleague you have learned to respect. We go home, the dark and I. We do not greet each other. We have the kind of arrangement you can live inside. And in the morning, when the air is still a little tender, and the sidewalks have the print of a night on them, and the town has the face of a place ready to be asked for small good work, I open without ceremony and let the bell speak for both of us. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more content. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Feel free to leave a comment below with your thoughts or questions. I love hearing from you. Until next time, take care and stay awesome.